really think you're worth it?
He's talking about his mastermind. It's nothing but a fashion show. You go there to take pictures with the head guy. Oh, look at me, I'm living this life. So I hit him up, I said, how much is it? I might go. I technically had the money, but I should never have went. You know what I mean? Like I shouldn't have spent it. So he's like, it's 15 grand. I got a funny story for you. Quite a common name nowadays. Wes Watson.
Okay.
Dude, check this out. This is funny. So my buddy Mike in South Carolina, he was actually my supervisor when we became friends, and he's always in the office watching Wes Watson videos. Oh my God. He used to call me. He calls me Jersey. He's like, Jersey, check this guy out. And he's at the park. You know, he's all tatted up. He's like, you know, he's telling his story at the park. You remember his earlier videos?
Yes.
Where he would tell stories essentially like from a voyeur perspective. Like, oh, I heard
there was a guy named Jimmy.
Right.
We used to call him Sticks.
Yeah.
Sticks was walking through the yard one day.
Yeah, it was just like somebody told you this story.
Right.
But you think he was there and
But if you notice, his stories as he begins to drink his Kool-Aid more and more become, I saw, I heard, I was there, I was a shot caller for 10 years. Yeah. You know, so my buddy Mike.
I did 8 years and I was never at a pin. But okay.
Yeah, so he's my buddy Mike's like, check it out. So I'm like, all right, you know, it's pretty entertaining, right? He's you know, he's a big guy, he's got the tattoos, you know, and I kind of resonated with that. So I'm like, okay, that's pretty cool. You know, whether he's lying or not, he's making
it's
money.
Hilarious.
He's doing his thing.
Absolutely.
Right? He's doing his thing, more power to him. So he's on The Fighter and the Kid. You ever heard of The Fighter and the Kid? It's Brandon Schaub and Brian Callen's.
It sounds familiar.
They're kind of a branch off of Rogan. Brandon Schaub was Rogan's boy, and they got their own little thing. It's pretty big. It's probably, I would say it's neck and neck with you. You're probably about the same fan base. So he's on The Fighter and the Kid. And he's like, I answer all my messages personally, right? So I'm like, I wonder what this guy's selling. So he gives his number. And I'm like, I text him. So he hits me back, yo, what's up, big dog? I'm like, sorry. I'm like, hey, how you doing, you know? And he's doing his whole shtick, you know? He's like, what's up, big dog? Sorry, I was on a call with some clients, blah, blah, blah. And almost immediately I realized it's an autoresponder, but he's got it programmed to his lingo. You know what I mean? The whole big dog, you know, all that shit. And he's like, he's doing his shtick. And I said, well, what's the product? I said, I'm interested. Now, I probably shouldn't have spent the money, but I had the money to spend. No, I didn't spend it. I shouldn't have even been asking. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I'm not going to send you 10 grand to get called a bitch.
You're right.
So I'm like, well, what's the shtick? You know, what are you selling? So boom, he breaks it down. You know, he's got his whole gangster thing going. For $2,500, you get this, comes with blah, blah, blah. For $5 grand, you get this, comes with blah, blah, blah. For $7,500, he's going on and on. And I'm already like, okay. So I said, well, I'm already seeing red flags because I'm doing the math. And he's saying I make X amount of millions per month. Now, you in sales, especially in online sales, let's say you want to make 2 sales. Do you know how many people you have to reach to make 2 sales?
Yeah, a lot.
You would have to, let's say you do
100, 200.
100, 200. Out of 200 people, let's just call it 100. 80% of those people are going to say that's spam, delete it. Mm-hmm. So now you're left with 20 people. Out of those 20 people, 10, let's say all 20 open the email. 10 are going to say, that's bullshit. Now you got 10 left. 7 of those people are going to be like, not for me. Maybe 3 are going to buy. 1's going to buy a bullshit product. Maybe 1 is going to buy your high ticket item. So I'm thinking to myself.
And those are good odds.
Right.
Those are good.
Those are very good.
That's what dumping money into the advertising.
Right. So he's like, I make X amount of $1 million a month. And I'm thinking to myself, even if those 3 were the high ticket item, you would have to sell this many a month. That means you would have to talk to this many a month personally. So I'm already seeing that he's bullshitting, but whatever, you know, maybe.
Yeah. There's there are YouTubers that are do investigative reporting that have already gone in and done the numbers.
Oh,
the
yeah,
numbers there's no way.
There's no way.
There would have to be 12 of you.
Right.
You know, working exactly 80 hours a week.
Right. So, but even at that, I was like, okay, whatever.
But he's still, I'm sure, no matter what it is, I'm sure.
Oh, he's doing good.
I'm sure he's doing amazing.
Sure.
To be honest with you. And it's the same thing with the prison thing. Here's what kills me. It's like, you don't have to say you did 10 years at a pen. You could just say what you really did. You can still behave like a lunatic. You can still do all those things. People are still going to buy in. You don't have to go to the extreme to convince people. And people have intuition, and they will believe you and trust you more if you're just honest.
Right.
What you're doing is you're causing people not to try. I think he's hurting himself
100%.
more. And not all of his message, but I'd say 80% of his message, I'm okay with.
Some of it's good.
Wake up early, work out, be a man, open the door for a woman, work hard, do those things, be an honorable person. Like a lot of it's right. And then there's the 20% where he's like, you're a bitch if you're not making this much money, you're a punk. If you don't look like me, you're a bitch.
We're getting
all right. You know what? Now I'm done,
dude. So listen. So I was like, okay. I'm still entertained.
I can still get something from this, right? Okay, I'm not gonna. Yeah, you're like, I'm still okay.
I'm still nibbling, right? So, but I back off because I kind of wanted to see. It just doesn't add up. So I was like, let me step back and I just want to see where this goes. So I'm following him on Instagram, and he's like. Now, anybody who's done any type of personal development is not going to respond to people who are making fun of you. Like, oh, your car's rented. You're not going to go, no, it's not. Look at the title. Yeah. If you have any type of, personal development in you, right? So he's talking about his mastermind. Now, I have friends that have put on masterminds, 10 grand a head. It's nothing but a fashion show. They don't give you shit. You go there to take pictures with the head guy. Oh, look at me. I'm living this life. So he's like, I'm doing a mastermind. Miami. This is what you get. Day 1, blah, blah, blah. Day 2, day 3. And I'm listening to it, and I'm like, so really all I get is dinner with you and some pictures and to be on your videos, and that's going to draw attention to me because I'm with Wes Watson.
Right.
Everything he's offering, I could get on YouTube for free. So I hit him up. I said, how much is it? I said, I'm not far from Miami. I might go. I technically had the money, but I should never have went. You know what I mean? Like I shouldn't have spent it. So he's like, it's 15 grand. And I was like, to hang out with Wes Watson for 3 days, I don't know. So I back off. So anyway, fast forward, right after the thing, he's on his story. All you haters want to talk about my cars rented. He's got the title, Lamborghini, Wes Watson, Bentley, Wes Watson. And I thought I shouldn't have said anything, but we had somewhat of a rapport. So I was like, bro, who cares? Like, who the fuck cares? Why would you even waste your breath on these people? And this guy messages me back, bitch, you don't even have 15 grand, so shut the fuck up. Why are you even talking? I was like, what? He's like, he starts ripping into me. He's like, you can't even afford to come to the fucking mastermind, you fucking bitch. And I'm just like, dude, I'll slap the shit out of you. I don't care I don't care how, you know what I mean? Like, the loudest person in the room is the weakest person in the room. Look, he's clearly geared up. He's clearly on test. I can tell you his stack right now just by looking at him. He's on test Trend Winstrel, right? Just by looking at him, I can tell you. And probably on a little growth hormone too. He's doing good. Good for him. Looks great. But bro, that don't teach you how to fight. You're going to get knocked the fuck out. Yeah. I'm not the guy because I don't want to fight anymore. But you're going to say that to the wrong person and they're going to fuck you up. It's funny because he's like, it was to the point where he was at the point in life where he was drinking his own Kool-Aid so hard. And he really believes I was a shot caller in prison. I'll come to your house and shank you. And I'm just like, dude, I didn't respond. I said, I was like, I'll see you on the way back down, bro. And he was just like, you. I'm like, okay.
I mean, he's going to have a massive heart attack one day.
Oh, yeah.
He's going to have to pay somebody to take care of him for a few years. They're going to piss through all of his money.
Oh,
he's going to end up living in someone's spare room on Social Security disability. And he's going to realize that his behavior got him exactly where he is.
Right. It's an arch. I mean, he's riding high right now, but exactly what you just said. I mean, you can't sustain that forever. You run full throttle, you eventually got to shut down.
And the people that are hanging around him are hanging around him for the hype. They don't really like him.
No, not at all.
Not
at all. You see the way he talks to the guys he works out with?
Oh yeah.
Pussy.
Listen, I met a guy. Well, this was when Wes was in, I think, LA.
Yeah.
Because I met a guy that said he went to the gym. He said he shows up with 10 or 15 guys and trains all of them, puts them on different machines. You've never heard anybody talk to someone
just brutal.
just guy. He said I was there one time when a guy came in late. He said just belittled the guy. The guy was, oh, so sorry. I'm sorry, Wes. He's like, they pay for him to abuse them.
Yeah.
And psychologically, there's got to be something wrong
with the guy, for sure.
Right. Like I thought, like you're not. It's like a masochist that has or what is that relationship where you have a woman
a dom and a sub.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Like people are like, you've got to know this isn't.
Yeah. They want to be abused. They
right.
want to be. Yeah. Like I mean this figuratively, but some wives like to be beat. And of course, I mean that figuratively.
There was a book that came out. Do you remember that? It was a black guy wrote the book and said black women want to be beaten.
Good Lord.
And that was the name of the book. And I mean, it was like a bestseller. And people, this is 20 years ago.
Please?
25 years ago, people were going nuts. Like, I can't believe it. But he was a best-selling book.
I'm sure it was. Yeah, I mean, it's the truth, though. Again, I don't really mean women like to be beat. I'm just saying, but like, I mean, some people, look, I respond better to, I guess because where I grew up in the 80s, like, you could blur this out, but like, how many times I've been called a retard on a job site?
Right.
It's like, I said a crescent wrench, not an adjustable, you moron.
Oh yeah. Growing up, that was a common thing. Oh. Are you been eating retard sandwiches?
Yeah.
What's wrong with you?
Yeah. Half a brain in your head was a compliment. Like, oh, you did good. You got half a brain in your head. Like normally that would be a brutal insult. But like my generation was like, yeah, I got half of these. Like that's a compliment. Like
moving on up.
Yeah, doing good. But no, I mean, my story is just, being taught toxicity, being taught violence, always seeing violence in the house. Born in Hayward, Bay Area, California, 1980. Born to two people that probably should have never had kids.
Right.
Like I wouldn't even adopt them a dog, You ever see like that meme? It's like when you've dealt with all the other telemarketers, this is the final boss. And it's like the Indian guy with all the head drapery on. Like my dad was like the final boss of Good Time Charlie's. Like if he didn't have a beer in one hand and a joint in the other, and he's like telling a story about like his heyday, he didn't want nothing to do with it, All
right.
So he was just like a complete, he was just a good time Charlie. No responsibility. He didn't want anything to do with, he was the type of guy who, he had like kids everywhere, proud of that, but wasn't so proud of like buying them school clothes.
I mean, didn't really want to take care of them, but love to say I have 8 kids.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong. He had his like priorities in check. Like he made sure he had alcohol, weed, cigarettes. But after that, it was like, we'll get to that. So, and my mom, she made it very clear she did not want children. So Jesus. Abundantly clear from day one. So she was diagnosed later as like a bipolar and all this. But me personally, I don't buy into it because I know I was around her, so I know what type of person she was. She was just a drug addict and with no discipline and a hateful person. So here you come to your psychiatrist and he puts a tag on it for you. So it's okay now. I'm a bipolar.
Oh, yeah. You have an excuse.
Yeah, it's not my fault, But so I was born in Hayward. We moved to New Jersey. I want to say like maybe 1982, 1983. These are some of my earliest memories. We had like an apartment, but it was more so a basement of someone's house. So,
right.
To call it an apartment is it's the nice way of putting it.
Do they have like basement apartments in California? Like I always think of that as being like New York.
Well, this was in Jersey. I mean, I'm sure.
Jersey.
Yeah,
you moved. Okay.
Yeah, we moved to Jersey, but I wouldn't by any stretch of the imagination call it an actual apartment.
Okay,
it was
it's just a
shithole basement.
Right. Okay.
The smell of mildew was very common. So yeah, same deal though. My dad, the landlord, hated him. Probably $200 a month. He couldn't come up with that. He's half the time he's working, half the time he's not. It's Jersey in the 80s before climate change, so there's always a foot of snow on the ground. And my mom was she's always running around doing whatever. She was, amongst other things. So, but my earliest memories were violent. There was always violence in the house. There was always screaming, drugs, chaos. I remember one night, I think I was maybe 5, 6 years old, and I hear this just horrific noise outside, just like metal smashing, all this craziness. And I'm like peeking out the window, and my dad's on the hood of the car, like just punching through the windshield, just glass flying everywhere. You know, I see blood, and she's in the front seat with a friend who happens to be a man. And, you know, of course they're just talking. Nothing's happening. You know what I mean?
No, of course.
What the
We're
hell's,
just friends.
Yeah, what's this problem? He gave me a ride home. So, you know, those are my earliest memories. It was just.
Your dad doesn't sound like a good time Charlie. Like Good Time Charlie doesn't sound like the guy that jumps on the hood of the car and starts trying to
Well, I mean,
punch his way through the windshield.
Yeah, he probably didn't drink that day. You know what I mean? It's like not so good of a time if he's not got a buzz. He's home watching me. He wasn't able to go out and party, so it's like, you know, cramping my style now.
All right.
So yeah, that was a common occurrence. So one day, I'm doing my thing in the basement. I see my mom come down the stairs, and she's got like 2 pieces of paper in her hand. She goes behind like this little picture frame, tucks it back there, and a couple weeks go by. And I notice I'm not going to school that day. You know, it's like, am I going to school? What's the deal? So my dad leaves for work, and she's like packing, you know, book bag. Come on, let's go. Get in the car, take off. We're heading to Newark Airport. So we fly to San Bruno, where my grandfather lives. We don't tell my dad. We just kind of like just disappear. He doesn't know anything. He doesn't know where we are. He just comes home and everybody's gone. So even though it was, you know, unhealthy and toxic, when she got away from him, it was like she didn't have any type of like authority figure. So she just spiraled out of control out there. It was, you know, just drugs and just, you know, different men and this. I mean, I only saw a couple of different guys. I don't want to make it sound like she was, you know, with all these guys, but I saw a couple. Yeah. But I remember always being at like, you know, get-togethers, parties, San Bruno, Millbrae, South City, and they were always like smoking methamphetamines. You know what I mean? They always had. I remember being a kid and looking on the stove, and they're like boiling the pipe to clean it, and there's always all these people around. You know, her boyfriend's letting me shoot a gun in the house and stuff, like setting up cans, and like I forget if it was a 22 or a pellet gun, but I remember, you know, it was just chaos.
This is not normal behavior.
No. Normal for me, but not, at this point in time, it'd become pretty normal. So I remember, you know, like I said, she was a train wreck. Everywhere she went there was always a problem. There was always a fight. She always got accused of stealing something. She was, you know, it was never her, mind you.
I don't know why this keeps happening to me.
It's everywhere I go. There's a problem. So they would also fight. And I remember she would just, you know, it's not a sob story. I'm just telling you what happened. But she would always take it out on me. You know, she'd always beat the piss out of me. So her boyfriend would start beating her up. She'd grab me. Come on, let's go. The whole ride home, I'm getting punched in the head and slapped and, you know, screamed at. And it got to the point where it really didn't even affect me anymore. I'm 6 or 7, and I just know to, you know, take the, you know, take the.
It's horrible.
Yeah, it is. But it's, you know, it is what it is. Truthfully, I wouldn't trade it for the world. I mean, it made me who I am. I mean, I have pretty good defenses, and I'm a pretty good judge of character now. So, so I remember one time we're driving home, and this was essentially like the pinnacle of it, living out there with her. We're driving home, and like the mid 80s were like really bad with gang activity in Northern California. So we're driving home from his house, and it's like 3 a.m, same routine. She's, you know, freaking out, hitting me, you know, all this craziness. Stops the car in the middle of the street, leans over and opens the door and gives me like the Joe Dirt routine. Just get out. And I'm like looking around like, this is not anywhere near where we live. You know, we're at 45 minutes from home. So she just kicks me out of the car, takes off.
How old were you?
6, 3 a.m. Yeah, just kicks
in
me
a
out.
In a shitty neighborhood.
Bad.
Gang-ridden neighborhood.
Horrible. Like I remember at 6 years old, I remember thinking to myself like, this is not good. Even if it were a good neighborhood, but I knew that this was a bad neighborhood. So
and all the gang members were like, someone threw out a
perfectly good white boy. And I was gorgeous too. Let me tell you, blonde hair, blue eyes. I was a target. So no, I remember. Which, by the way, none of this ever happened. If you ever ask her, it's I didn't do that. What are you talking about? But
hey, real quick, just wanted to let you guys know that we're looking for guests for the podcast. If you think you'd be a good guest or you know somebody, do me a favor. You can fill out the form. The link is in our description box, or you can just email me directly. Email is in the description box. So back to the video.
So I remember I'm standing in the middle of the street, and I just watched her like little red station wagon take off, and I'm like, what the do I do now? You know, like, so I run off to the side of the road, and I kind of like dip down behind a car, And I'm looking around and okay, there's no cars coming. It's safe. I can run over to this house, beat on the door. I'm beating on the door. And even at 6 years old, I remember thinking to myself, like, I don't know who's going to answer this door, but I can't be out here.
Right.
Like if I'm out here, I remember there was always on the news, there was always like a dead body being found here or someone got kidnapped over here.
So, shootings and
all the time, especially in the Bay Area. I mean, probably still now, but to give you a little context to that, you ever heard of Santa Cruz, California?
Yeah.
So when my dad and my mom got together, my mom had been, I don't want to say missing, but just off doing what she does, and she finally calls my grandfather and she's like, hey, I'm pregnant. I got a new boyfriend, blah, blah, blah. So she's like, can we come by and you can meet Bob and all this and that? Yeah, come by. So, mighty kind of you. So they go to my grandfather's house in San Bruno, who fast forward to 1987, I'm living with. And he pulls my dad to the side and he said, listen, I don't know if you know what you got going on here. He said, but I thought that she was dead because there was a head found on Santa Cruz Beach this morning, and I figured it was hers. Like that's how she operates. You know what I mean? That's those are the circles she ran in. He says, so I figured it was hers, and I'm like, bracing myself. So when she called, I was like, oh, thank God. So that was the kind of, that's the type of people they were. Which my grandfather did great financially. He was just, he was home from the war. He PTSD. He was also a drug addict, but he was functioning. He got a check from the military. He got a check from the post office. So he did very well, but he had bars on his windows. He was agoraphobic. Answered the door. What do you want? With a gun in his belt, type shit. So
his daughter's a maniac.
Yeah, his daughter's a lunatic.
Right.
She's bringing this guy around. Who's like.
He's trying to warn him.
Yeah.
You know what you're signing up for, bro.
He's probably got no shirt on when he met my grandfather. You know what I mean? I'll give you a little context about him. He's got a big joint tattooed on his back. It says, feel like a number. That was like his favorite tattoo. He's like, check this out. I'm like, that's great. Maybe not at the parent-teacher conference, though, So, so she, I'm beating on the door, and I remember nobody's answering. And in the back of my head, I'm like, thank God they're not answering, because I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know who's going to answer this door. So I turn around, and I go to run to the next neighbor's house, and here she comes up the street. Get the back in the car. I'm thinking to myself, I'm 6. You kicked me out in the middle of the ghetto, and I'm in trouble for seeking help.
Yeah.
So we go home, same routine, get my ass kicked. Couple weeks go by. I was a troubled kid, so like, I wasn't really troubled, but I felt like I was okay personally, but I had a lot of shit going on. So whenever I'd go to school, the kids would, like, hey, Bobby, go punch that kid in the face. And it was like some 6th grader. I was in the 2nd grade. They wanted to see if I'd do it, So
right.
I'm looking for attention. I'm a kid. I'm misguided. So I run up, clock this kid in the face. And, the principal's constantly calling the house. He's like, look, Cassie, Mrs. Thornlow, whatever. We're about to expel this kid. He's in the 2nd grade and we're going to expel him. So she barely even said anything to me. I just heard her on the phone, but she didn't care. So couple weeks, maybe a month go by. And I remember, we come home from one of her benders, and there's a note hanging in the shower, and it's my grandfather. He wrote a note. He wrote her a note. And now, people like to use their kids as bargaining chips. Like, you can't kick me out. I got the kid,
Right.
So when you are to a point when you say to someone, take that kid and get out of here,
right.
You've had enough. And that's essentially what it said. Like, you need to put him on a plane. You need to go to rehab. You need to get out of here. So however much time goes by, I don't think more than a month. Same deal. Just getting ready for school one morning. You're not going to school today. Bunch of clothes in a book bag. She doesn't tell anybody. Show up at San Francisco International. I remember she's like scurrying me to the terminal, and we're like at the terminal, and I'm still like clueless, and she's like, all right, you're gonna hop on this plane. And I'm like, with who? Like, who am I going with? She's just by yourself. Just get on the plane. I bought you a ticket. The stewardess is going to keep an eye on you. I'm like, all right. So I'm wearing her jean jacket because I just didn't have a coat. And later on I found out that her pack of cigarettes was in there with a gram of in it. So like, at 6 years old, I've already smuggled drugs and, But so she leaves the airport, calls my grandmother in Point Pleasant, New Jersey. And she's like, listen, your grandson's on a plane. He'll be in Newark at 4:00. You need to go to wherever Bob is, find him, and you guys need to go pick him up. And and my grandmother's just like,
Right.
you know what I mean? Like, but in all fairness, my dad was the same person. He just wasn't violent. You know what I mean? They were both train wrecks.
Right.
But he was just not physical and not psychotic. So, long story short, I get off the plane. I'm like, I don't know what I'm getting off to. I'm just got my book bag. I'm this little kid, just traveling with on me and, minding my business. So no, I get off the plane. My grandfather and my dad are there. They pick me up and I'm thinking to myself, like, it was kind of just a whirlwind because, at this point in time, all this, like I already am to the point where like, I've seen things that most adults haven't seen. I've done things that most adults haven't done. I already know to keep my defenses up. If someone hands me something, I block it. Like you could hand me, I remember when I got to Jersey, someone would go to hand me like a snack or something. And I'm like, oh, okay, thanks. I was ready to, defend myself. So things were pretty good then because it wasn't violent anymore. But my dad, being a good time Charlie that he was, like he didn't work a lot, like because of the weather. So, we'd go to the liquor store.
Because of the weather.
Yeah. But I mean, because he was in construction. So it was like, if it was raining, he's like, oh, got the day off, time to get drunk. So, we'd go to the liquor store and it was like half a pint of blackberry brandy, 6-pack of Bud Nips, pack of Camel non-filters, Slim Jim for the boy, Yoo-hoo for the boy, let's go to the lake. So it's freezing cold. And I'm like, Dad, I'm freezing. Like, it's January. I don't want to be at the lake, And he's like, this will warm you up. Hands me the blackberry brandy. So I take a swig, and he just thinks it's funny, And then anytime we were around his friends, it was like, hey guys, watch this. And he handed me like a Camel non-filter. 6, 7 years old. I'm like, yeah, look at me, Dad, So he was just like, I always say he has the Michael Jackson syndrome. Like he's essentially forever 15,
Right. Minus
the.
Yeah.
Other than that, he was like forever 15 and just did not know he was an adult, So, like I said, he always smoked weed too. That was another thing. Anytime we were hanging out, it's like, hey guys, watch this. And let me hit his joint. I came back into 2nd grade to Jersey, and from like 2nd grade to like 6th grade was just regular kid shit. He stopped doing all the weed smoking and the cigarette. He just kind of did his own thing, and I didn't see him that much. He worked a lot. So by the time I hit 6th grade, prepubescent, starting to get a little rowdy. Me and my friends started getting into like more like hooligan shit. Give you an example. Like the first time I got arrested, I'm riding my bike. You see Goodfellas?
Yeah.
You remember the Lufthansa heist?
Yeah.
I joke around. I call it the Alfonso heist.
All right.
We go past this pizzeria, and he's cleaning the pizzeria, and he puts the bubblegum machine outside. And I'm like, there's got to be like $12,000 in that thing. At least. So me and my buddy Mike, we take it and we bust it upside down, and only like $80 came out. So I don't know where the other 11,000 went,
right.
But it didn't translate. So we think we're like John Gotti at this point. You know what I mean? We're riding around. We got satchels full of quarters. We're buying Mad Magazine. I bought a Mad Magazine and like Charleston shoes. I'm like, I'm set for life, Long story short, he got caught by his parents, and cops showed up at my house somehow, but he didn't tell them.
Yeah.
So
they fingerprinted it.
Yeah. They wanted their $47 back. But I always joke around. I call it the Alfonso heist because it was the guy's name was Alfonso, the pizzeria. But I'm pretty sure word on the street was he was connected. And when the cops were like, "Do you want to press charges?" Oh no. Are they allowed back in? Yeah, it's fine. Just no big deal. Don't come sniffing around here. But it was just kid shit. But then 7th grade is when it started to get like a little more adult. There was a kid in town. He was like
7th grade.
Yeah, I know.
A
hardened vet over here. So there was an older kid in town. He was a punk, but his dad was the chief of police, and he just ran amok. He just did whatever he wanted. He's still a punk to this day, if he's watching this. No, but I'm only kidding. No, his dad was the chief of police, and he's like, he just did whatever he wanted. His parents were divorced, and he tried to play the whole like, I don't even talk to my dad. I'm not a snitch. I don't mess with the cops. Meanwhile, his dad, like he did whatever he wanted, and his dad would be down the road. I'll get to this, but his dad would tell his mom like, hey, people are hearing things,
right?
And I'm gonna have to do something about it. So tell him and his little cronies to calm down, for a couple weeks.
He's running interference.
For sure, 100%. This guy got caught. Allegedly got caught trying to buy an automatic weapon online and got demoted from his position, and he was the chief, and he got knocked down to like this other equally as authoritative position,
right?
to where it's like you're still running the show.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're still running amok in this town. So the kid's like, you guys want to make some money? Yeah, sure. He's like, I got a pound of weed. You know, we'll you guys sell it at school. We'll nick it up and dime it up. You know, okay, cool.
This is a chief of police's son.
Yeah.
Okay. Selling weed. Okay.
Yeah, kid shit. But I mean, it was a couple pounds here and there, you know. So he's like, he's giving it to us, you know, quarter pound at a time. We're selling it to all our friends, going to parties and shit. Then he's like, I got something else for you. What's that? I got some powder. I get, you know, I don't know where he got it from, but he's like, I get really good powder. If you guys know anybody, you know, and we're like, well, we're 12. Who do we know that's, you know, no, we don't know anybody. But he's like, all right, here's what I'll do. I'll give you X amount. And then like, I'm just going to stay over here. And whenever I have somebody come through, he'll just grab it off you guys. You guys make a couple bucks, 10, 20 bucks a gram. And, you know, I get my cut. Everybody's happy. He was getting it for like 26 bucks a gram, which is super cheap. And it was really good stuff. And
when you get it out of the evidence locker,
yeah, no kidding, right?
There's a steep discount.
Yeah. He's really getting a steal on it. So he's like, we were just his little lackeys.
Yeah.
You know, but I remember being like 12 years old, maybe 13. It was 7th grade, so however old. And we're at this little house party. And granted, my dad made like 500 bucks a week. You know, he could have made more, but he's probably making 400, 500 bucks a week. And I remember my buddy pulls a wad of money out. I think he went to write down some girl's number or something, and he's like looking for paper, and it's just like 1,500 bucks. And even then, I remember thinking like, we're not even 13, you know, and there's like, we got, you know, $1,400 on us selling. These aren't like kid drugs. These like, we're getting like this is real, you know, like,
this is serious. Yeah.
Yeah. I have 5 kids now, and I can't imagine like my 14-year-old with, you know, a quarter ounce all grammed up on her. You know what I mean? So like, when I think about the 80s were a different time though, like, I think we grew up a lot differently than these kids nowadays. You know, it's like, yeah.
I mean, you see the things where it's like, I mean, I definitely was one of those kids that I got home from school and, you know, my mom said, okay, go outside and play.
Yeah,
come back when the lights come on or you hear me scream for you. Like I was blocks away. Or when I was in summer school, she used to buy, or during summer, she used to buy a summer pass to like Busch Gardens.
Oh yeah.
Or Busch Gardens is 4 or 5 miles minimum from my house. Yeah. I would ride my bike 5 miles across the highway.
Right.
Yeah. Go there, stay there all day.
Yeah.
Ride all the way back and try and get there before dark.
Oh yeah.
Because she'd yell at me.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, this is all summer. Like I'm spending at Busch Gardens or Adventure Island for 3 months during the summer.
Right.
It was just looking back now. It's like that would never happen.
I don't trust my kid to get the mail.
Right.
I'm like, who's going to get them? You know, I'm watching. I'm like, I'm paranoid. We're probably part of the problem because like our generation, there was like serial killers everywhere and kidnappers. So we're like, I mean, it's that expression. What is it? Hard men create good times create weak men. You know, we're at the weak men part, you know, because we were my generation was so like neglected and thrown to the wolves that I'm like, even though that's what made me, and that's what's given me my drive and my ambition and my passion for life, I'm still trying to protect my kids from it. Yeah. It made me on accident because it could have killed me. Yeah. Several times. In fact, it very, very close to killed me several times. But no, so yeah, he's, you know, we start, you know, moving powder for him. And I don't know why it stopped. Maybe I think he might have went to jail or something like that. I forget what happened, but I think he went to jail for like an assault charge or something. And we just kind of like parted ways. I don't remember exactly what happened, but the next year, this what I'm about to tell you really set the foundation for my personal development later in life. So the next year was 8th grade, and me and some friends, I was starting to hang out with some different kids, and like grunge music was like taking over. So everybody was like a pothead, you know, everybody wanted to experiment with psychedelics. And me and my friends were doing some like pretty severe hallucinogens. I don't want to say what they were because I don't want some idiot kid to try it. Yeah. But we were, you know, it was the beginning of, it was right before Thanksgiving, my 8th grade year. And I was like tripping hard. You know what I mean? Like we had been like tripping all day long, just like severely tore up, you know? And I remember coming out of my body and seeing myself on the other side of the room. And I was just like, I freaked out. I was like, okay, we like overdid it. I mean, doing anything that young, I mean, doing anything in general, you shouldn't mess with your mind. But at, 12, 13 years old, you're doing like brain damaging drugs, you know? And I remember it was so vivid and horrific that I was like, I don't ever want to do that again. So naturally, like 6 months later, we're doing it again. Right. And because I don't, do not learn my lesson. And the same exact thing happened. And I was like, okay, I've learned my lesson this time. We can agree that we're not going to do that again. A couple weeks later, we're smoking weed. And I guess I just wasn't healed enough yet or out of the woods enough yet, psychologically. And it came back. And dude, it haunted me for like 2 years. Like it was the end of 8th grade summer. Going into 9th grade. And I remember freshman year staring at my notebook, and I hadn't smoked weed or drank anything in months. And I'm staring at my notebook, and it looked like someone's dropping rocks in water. It just kept going like, boop, boop, boop. You know what I mean? So I'm thinking to myself, like, I'm screwed. I'm absolutely screwed because I'm not getting high. Like I'm just crazy.
Yeah, I've done some severe damage here to my.
Yeah. And it's not getting any better. So, I last like freshman year, it just kept getting worse and worse, and it's haunting me, which I don't, only a couple of people know about that part. I don't really dive into it too much, but I remember 9th grade, I was just like, man, I got to get out of Jersey. It's cold. It's depressing. It's reminding me of this. Like I got to get away. I got to start, I got to get somewhere fresh. So I hit my mom up. I'm like, can I come?
Seems like a good idea.
Well,
that was a good move.
Yeah. Well, I told you I don't learn my lesson. So I'm like, can I come get to know you? Can I come stay with you? And she's like, yeah, of course, And 2 weeks prior to me going out there, she's like, I don't think it's a good idea. So I'm like begging her, like, Mom, can I please come like stay at your house? I'm going to jump off a damn bridge over here. So she's like, all right, well, fine. So I go out there and almost overnight, just from leaving that cold, like depressing environment and going to like an environment where it's sunny and there's palm trees and it's just, there's multi-million-dollar homes and everybody has nice cars. Yeah. It just brought me out of it.
The weather's 65 or 70 every single day.
It's just beautiful. It's perfect. It's paradise. And this was mid 90s. So like all the stuff you see out there now, how it's pretty much fallen off the earth.
Yeah.
There was none of that. It was just paradise.
I was going to say it was ideal back then.
And I was right in Silicon Valley.
Now the Californians have ruined it.
Oh my gosh, bro. Dude, it's a cesspool. It's a cesspool. Where my mom lives now, which I don't talk to her, any part of her family anymore, but like you have to step over human shit when you're walking down the street. Yeah. Like there's apps that tell you, don't go here. Someone just, Yeah. Last time I was there, I stepped over a dead body getting through Market Street. Like I'm walking, I was on Market Street in San Francisco, and I'm like, everybody's like stepping around, and this guy's like on the ground. I step over and I look back, he's just laying there dead. I'm like, oh shit. Nobody cares. It's a cesspool. But so I go out there, 10th grade, and it was like, even in the nice areas, the high schools were like riddled with like gangsters and wannabe gangsters.
Right.
You know what I mean? Do you remember, the big steroid debacle in Major League Sports with Balco Industries?
I don't know about the industries part, but I remember there was a few of them.
Barry Bonds, yeah. So the gym that he was running out of with Greg Anderson, I believe his name was Greg Anderson. It was Barry Bonds, Jose Canseco. It was called Bay Area Fitness. Now, when I was in the 10th grade, I move out there, and of course, like, I was like a wannabe gangster, so I link up with all like the bad kids, you know what I mean? And they're all tangled up in that place. Like you go there, you buy steroids, you buy whatever you want right over the counter. So the kid that this dude Hawson that I linked up with, he became my best friend. Actually everybody I was friends with out there is dead. I'm the last person alive. So he's like, yo, come to the gym with me. I'm like, yeah, all right. We go to the gym where, everybody from high school's there. At any given time, you'll see like Jose Canseco there. You'll see Barry Bonds there. You'll see like, anytime like WWF came to town, you'd see like Triple H not Triple H, but like Undertaker in this time. You'd see him in there working out. Nobody messed with him, but it was the place to be. So my buddy Hawson was linked up with them, and I stayed out there for a while. It was me, him, these two other guys. Like I said, they're all dead now. But so I go out there with them, and again, petty criminal shit. Just he was affiliated with the Crips, this little group of Crips from San Mateo, California. They were all Tongans, and they were like money collectors. So now I'm going from like a wannabe in Jersey to, in my like idiotic, naive mind, like, oh, I'm a real gangster now. You know, I live in California. I'm surrounded by all these gangbangers. Like this, you know, in my just immature mind, like that was cool to me.
Right.
I looked up to it. So these guys were like the real deal, though. They would, you know, people. It's a lot more organized out there. Like someone would come to. A couple of them are still alive. I was more of a hang around with the Crips. Like my little crew was me, Hassan, Yusuf, and Pat. And then he would bring us to hang out with these other guys, but I wasn't really a part of them. I would just come, go to the barbecues and stuff like that. So some of them are still alive, so I don't really want to call them out like that. But like people would come to them and say, look, so-and-so owes us 10 grand. Can you go take care of it? Yeah, no problem. So they go in there, kick the door in, you know, shotguns, the whole deal, get the money. Those guys, they were involved with real shit.
Right.
We were punks.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I hung with them, but I didn't really, you know, get too tangled up with him. Austin, on the other hand, he was completely tangled up with him. So I leave, I come back to Jersey because, you know, surprise, surprise, my mom's still a train wreck. And,
Right.
I just couldn't live with her. And it was like when I was a kid, the manic episodes and the craziness, you know, it was still there, but I was 16, 15, so she couldn't, you know, hit me.
You're too big to be a target.
Yeah, right.
At this point.
But it was still like a lot of psychological abuse.
Well, I mean, you know, like mental health doesn't get better with age; it gets worse.
Hell no.
You know,
dude, there's no such thing as staying stagnant when it comes to your mental growth that I learned. You either expand or contrast. There's no such thing as staying in one place. You're either going to get better, and it is very difficult to fight through that, or you're going to get worse. And that's what happened with my grandfather. He got worse and worse and worse until he was agoraphobic. And I was at his house one time. He put a gun on my stomach. You know, and then he starts laughing. I'm like, you need help, bro.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm gonna come over here anymore. It just gets worse and worse. You get darker and darker. And he said that he was like, I wish you could see into my mind because it's very dark. He said, I don't understand it. It's getting smaller and darker. And, you know, he just died crazy. And that's where my mom's going. And I can't even be around her. And that's why, you know, I firmly like have to break the chain. Because I'm not doing that. I've been crazy. Like I've been stuck on a trip. Essentially, I've been to a place where I wasn't in control and I was hallucinating, or having massive panic attacks because I could see my pulse, or I open my eyes and I see the wall breathing 3-4 months after I was sober. So I'm like, I have to will myself out of this, and I have to keep pushing, or I'm gonna end up like them. I come back to Jersey, and when I come back to Jersey, it's like, everybody's selling drugs. Everybody's wilding out. Everybody's happy to see me. I'm back. Oh my goodness, you were in California, this, that, and the other thing. So long story short, the kid that was providing us, he's like, look, you know, working sucks. So let's do that again. You know, let's go back to selling drugs. He said, but this time, I want to say he did go to jail because I remember he came home with a connection, and we were going up to New York and like Spanish Harlem, and we would go into this clothing store. Now, mind you, we're like white boys, and there would be like all kinds of candles on the ground, still lit. Oh, what happened here? Oh, so I'll never forget this. We go up there one time, and it was like there was candles and roses all over the ground, and they're like, I'm like, well, what happened here? Oh, so and so got shot last night. It's all good. Come on in. I'm like, what the fuck? Like,
and what, they're lighting candles for Santeria, or what do they call that?
Santeria. I don't know. I think it was just like a memorial.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? Like they were just like, you know, their buddy got shot last night over a drug deal, and it's just business as usual. You know, like keep it moving. We got more drugs to sell. So we're in this clothing store, just counting out thousands of dollars, and they're coming back with just ounces and ounces of just. It was so fresh that it was wet and moist. It wasn't even powder yet. Like it was just pressed, just shipped, and it was almost paste. And then we'd take it back to Jersey and chop it up and, you know, gram it, quarter it, whatever. So that took off like a wildfire. This town that we were in, that I essentially grew up in, is filled with like a lot of country boys. Like we were by Philly, by New York, but this one specific place in Ocean County had like a lot of hicks in it. And dude, they love, like every Friday night, it's like, the bar, let's get an 8-ball, you know, Saturday, let's get an 8-ball. It's, you know, it was just,
You're like blue collar guys that
Blue collar guys.
had money to spend.
They had money, roofers, siders, and
Functioning addicts.
dude, functioning like a. But yeah, but they spent money, man. I mean, they'd spend, I've had guys spend $1,500 on a weekend, and Monday morning they're at it. I drink 3 beers now. The next day I feel like I got shot. You know, I don't know how they do it. Don't care either. So yeah. As soon as I got out of high school, I found out I was going to become a dad. And, normally people would be like, oh, I got to get my shit together. Mm-hmm. Instead, I was like, oh, I got to
step my
game up. I got to sell a little bit more drugs here. I'm a family man now. Right. I got to do the right thing. I got to provide. So I found out that if you cooked it and turned it into rock, it was 100 for a gram as opposed to 60 a gram. Now, some of the cut would fall out, but you're getting about 30% more. However, it attracts an entirely different clientele.
Right.
I go from roofers and siders coming by at a respectable hour to people knocking on my window at 4 a.m. Hey, I need 1 more gram. And I'm like, no, you need to go. You're like, but here's the other gram. So I did that for a while. That was obviously not the right thing to do. So, 2 of my buddies that I was doing it with, I kind of saw the writing on the wall. And you know where Flagler Beach is?
No.
Daytona?
Yeah, I know where Daytona is, yeah.
Okay. So I'm up in Jersey. I have like a 3-story house, splitting it with my buddy. Nobody has a job. All we're doing is selling crack. I have a kid. What's funny is I was selling crack and he was selling powder, and he looked down on me because like, oh, you deal with scumbags. Right. I'm like, you do realize it's the same drug, correct? Like, there's no difference here. But anyway, so long story short, he that dissolves pretty quickly. And I said, look, I want to get out of here once again. I want to start fresh and do the right thing. So my 2 buddies that were doing it with me, they stayed behind, and I took off to Florida. Like, we weren't partners, but we were just all friends who did their own thing. Not long after I left, they got raided, and I mean, one got 29 years, one got 27 years. Oh yeah, they got to hand it to him. The one was had no criminal record.
This is state?
Yeah, all state.
How much time do you do in state?
So some were ran concurrent. There was multiple charges. There was a gun found. There was a lot of rock found. He had a record, so he wound up getting quite a few charges. Some of them ran concurrent. He officially got 29 years and officially did 13. Then my other friend, who had no record, but he was still part of it, he got less charges, but they were trying to like divvy up the time, and the judge was like, no, you're both getting it. And he wound up doing like 7 or 8 and a clean record. He was track and field kid. But the company you keep, he wound up doing 7 or 8. I think he got sentenced to 23 or 24. But the judge wasn't playing, it was just like, look, we warned you, and here it is. And I missed it by the skin of my teeth. Like, I just happened to go to Florida, to Flagler Beach, was a little north of Daytona.
A few weeks before.
Dude, like, I just missed it. And I was always over there. Like, I just remember thinking to myself, like, thank God, So what I realized at this point, I didn't realize this till later, but I started going to church, right? I'm like this, like, hardcore into it, God saved me, which he did. And I am a very strong believer still to this day. I'm not perfect. However, it was just another addiction. You know what I mean? It was just another extremist move, because I didn't learn till later on, what my parents taught me was addiction, extremism.
You have an addictive personality now, right? Like, you got light.
It's just wild. Yeah. It
doesn't. Like, if I'm interested in something, then I just consume it for weeks at a time, and then I'm done with it.
Right. That's how I got with, when I was selling drugs, it was like, I'm going to be this kingpin. When I was, God spared me and I started going to church. So it was like, we have to be in church Tuesday, Thursday. So, you know what I mean? Then after that, it's like the next thing you're into. And the next thing, if it's not food, it's sex. If it's not sex, it's drugs. If it's not drugs, it's this, money. You have to realize, like, none of this is healthy. You can partake in whatever you want to an extent. Like, I wouldn't suggest partaking in drugs anymore because it's a chemical, but like, you can have fun without being a maniac.
Right.
Like, I could still have a beer. You know, every once in a while, I might smoke a little weed. Like every couple of years, if I feel like I need to go on a spiritual journey, I might take a couple of hits off a joint. But here's the thing: when I need it, it works because I don't do that shit anymore.
Right.
So if like 2 years ago, I was going through some things, and I was like, man, I need to quiet myself down. So I spent 3 days smoking weed, and at the end of 3 days, I was like, I got the answer I was looking for. I'm good. I'm not, you know what I mean? Like it's just not my thing, but I felt like I needed it, and I got the answer I was looking for. So I was doing the church thing for a while, and again, being an extremist, I kind of, it began to wear off, and then my old ways started to pick back up. This was right around the time when like the opiate thing was happening. You know, everybody, like you stub your toe, here's 100 Percocets, you know?
Yeah.
So I had someone in my life who was like, actually everybody in my life, that we didn't really know what it was. We didn't know how bad it was.
Yeah.
You go in for a backache, you twist your ankle.
It's a prescription.
Here you go. Doctor gave it to me.
It's gonna be fine. I got a script.
I'm good. It's legal. So I had like hundreds of them just from all the times I've been to the doctor. I cut my hand. She writes me 155s. I'm like, well, I don't even know what this is. To me, it's Advil. So one day I pop one and I'm like, oh shit, that's what that is. Like that doesn't feel too bad. And then I was telling my buddy about it, and he's like, oh shit, I'll buy them off you $1 a milligram. I was like, what? He's like, yeah, I'll buy them $1 a milligram. So I go from like, I'm in the union at this time, in the operating engineers union. I party, but I'm not like a drug addict.
Right.
I don't do any type of drugs anymore. I might drink, I drink on the weekends, the regular, just whatever. And I remember, I think I had like 110 milligram Percocets, and I told somebody about them, and it was just like, here's the money, thank you. Oh, one shot. I'm like, I can get tons of these. What are you talking about? He's like, dude, as many as you can give me, I'll take them. So I'm like, yeah, I know this guy, I know that guy, everybody's got them. So I just start buying them. Next thing you know, like I'm selling them here, selling them there. I would get like 100, 150 tens. Within 20 minutes, they're going $1,500 in your pocket. You're ready to go out for the night. Like you got your paycheck, $1,500 from the union. You just made $1,500 in 20, 30 minutes from selling pills. It's a good weekend, Right. And I'm a young punk. I'm 23, 24. I don't have any responsibilities. I mean, I have my kids, but I don't know but I was never taught to buy a house. I was never taught to invest. So I'm just living hand to mouth.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I got $3,000 in my pocket. Let's go have a good time. It was stupid, but whatever. So I remember that started to get a little carried away. And I remember one time I was at, we have, what do we have here? Like a Winn-Dixie? You have Winn-Dixie?
Yeah, we have Winn-Dixie.
Yeah, okay. So like Winn-Dixie is ShopRite up north. So I hop out of the car at ShopRite, and I had a 7.5 in my hand, and I hadn't taken anything in a long time, right? So I popped a 7.5, and by the time I hit the door, I was just like, holy shit, like this hit me sideways. Like I'm feeling really good. And I didn't realize how dark I was. I didn't realize how depressed I was. I didn't realize how angry I was, because I was always like a comical type of person, always trying to have a good time. But I never realized how just all the shit that I got taught as a kid was in there. So all of a sudden I felt the mask on that. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, that feels pretty good. Like I'm not sitting here thinking about all this bullshit. I'm not sitting here stressed out. Like I just have this good euphoric feeling. And I remember I came down and I felt like a total scumbag, because I knew it was wrong. I knew it was gross, So I was like, well, fuck it, I'll go back up, I pop another one, and I go from selling probably, I don't know, like maybe $2,000 a week worth of pills to, I don't know, maybe $1,500 a week and taking like $500 a week. I would say it was more of, I was still having fun and didn't realize I had a habit yet, So that goes on for a while, and I start to feel like a piece of garbage. So I'm like, let me stop. So I go back to the gym. I sign up for the gym, and this guy, he was a professional bodybuilder, and he just happened to, he was at a low point in his life, and he was selling gym memberships. And so we're talking. He's like, yeah, he's cool. We're chopping it up, building a little bit of a rapport. He signs me for the gym. He's like, hey man, and I had gotten clean. I stopped around, and I had been out of it, and he's like, "You out pills at all?" And I'm just like, a little bit. Why? He's like, "Dude, I get all these rock cassettes, man." He goes, "I get thousands of them," and I'm like, well, let me see, So he tosses me a little blue rock cassette, and I pop it, and it was just, it was right back in action. He's like, "Man, I get you anything you want." So I go from selling like,
couple thousand a week
to like endless. Like I don't even know, because I was such a up, I didn't keep track.
So now you're buying them, buying them from him, but in selling them?
Yeah.
You went right back into it. Okay.
Yeah, as many as you wanted. I mean, I don't know where he got it from. I don't care, but he would get freezer bags full of them.
It's funny how many bodybuilders who are like, taking steroids will also take opiates, because it allows them to work out even harder. Their pain threshold drops dramatically.
I'm telling you, bro. When I first got into it, lifting and taking pills, you'd be you're covered in sweat. Your veins are sticking out of your face. You're feeling good. You're feeling euphoric, and you feel good from lifting weights anyway. And
the combination of that and the combination of that and any type of steroid, your gains are amazing.
Dude, it's crazy. It's crazy, and you feel like you feel like a tank. You're feeling like better than you've ever felt in your life. I go to the gym and I think like, I'm gonna clean myself up, and the guy at the gym's got him. So I call my boy Hawson out in California, and he's still running with this gym. Like he's still like, he's kind of like the guy out there now. Come to find out, he had so he had a system worked out with like not DuPont. It was the Sackler family. And who was the distributor of like all the Percocets and hydrocodone and all that shit? Like whatever company made them.
Is it? Made them? Well, that was you're talking about Purdue.
Purdue. I don't know why I kept saying DuPont. So
Purdue and Purdue. Yeah, they're
close.
I was say DuPont is they make a petroleum product, right?
Okay, I think so. Yeah, like paint, right? Something like that. I don't know.
Lots of petroleum products. They have tons of different ones.
Yeah. So he had something worked out where they would pay the guards off at the warehouse, and the guards would look the other way. They'd go in and take cases of them, and they'd bring them back to that gym. And I remember right before I left, they were selling steroids a lot, and that's when that whole shit happened with Barry Bonds and all them. Now, that guy,
he worked in so he's getting boxes of
his
product,
his friends,
and walking them right out.
His people are, yeah.
Okay.
And he's doctor shopping, and this was before. Like you really can't doctor shop anymore, because if you're a doctor, you write me a script and then I go to this doctor, he's going to know you wrote.
Yeah. That was in the 2000s after the pill mill in Florida blew up.
Right.
They came out with it. Well, at least I think in most states, but in Florida, they came up with a system. I forget the name of it, but so if he writes a script, he goes in there and he says, "I wrote Matthew Cox a script for this much," and then if you go to other doctor before he writes a script, he goes in and goes, "Whoa, wait a minute now." 2 weeks ago, you just got a script.
Right. So before that happened.
Yeah, you could go to as many doctors as you could find.
Dude,
as long as you went to different pharmacies.
All day long. And they were doing the warehouse shit. So it's kind of all tied together. So after I moved, my stepdad linked up with my best friend Hawson, and they're doing and selling drugs together. And like, this is my mom's husband.
Right.
He's like, he gets wind of my buddy Hawson kind of running the show now. And he's like, and Hawson's like, "Well, come to the gym. You can buy whatever you want." So you just walk up to the counter. "Hey, check in. I'm going to go work out. Hey, let me get 50 oxys and whatever. Okay, here you go. Boom, boom, boom. Right on the counter. And then it was going on forever.
Did he make you buy a gym membership? You have to sign up. You have to get a gym membership first.
Like, we got to make this look legit.
Yeah. So come into my office. We're going to buy one for $350.
Yeah. I mean, we're still a company here. We have integrity. But they were selling it right over the counter, man, before they got shut down. And the owner of the gym, him and his son were the ones pretty much running the show. The owner was quiet. The son was more of like the face. And my best friend Hawson was his partner, and they pretty much would just, run amok. And then here comes my stepdad and my mom at this point. They're running up a tab, $10,000, $15,000 in Percocets, Xanax, Oxycontin, to the point where they became friends with the guy who owned the gym, paid him off. They got clean. A couple years later, she falls back off, runs up another tab for like $14,000, and the guy's like, "Look, I'm just going to call it even. Go get help."
Right.
To my mom. But my buddy Hawson, he's still doing his thing. And then He told me one time, I said, I was on the phone with him. He goes, look, I said, look, I'm not feeling so hot. I said, I'm starting to, get an addiction here. And he was like, well, I can help you with that. He's like, can you get any Salma? I said, there's nothing around. I said, I sold everything. I didn't keep anything. And I can't get anything for another 2 weeks. And he's like, can you get any Salma? I'm like, yeah. He goes, take 7 Salma. And I had no clue what Salma are.
So a drug that helps you supposedly get off of opiates, doesn't it?
I had no clue.
Yeah, it's like what is the other thing they do now where they
Suboxone.
Suboxone, yeah, it's like Suboxone. It's supposed to be a non-habit forming, non-habit forming version of like an opiate. So it kind of tricks you into it, but it's supposedly easier to get off. So
yeah. Well, he tells me,
I think. I could be wrong. Somebody will tell me, I'm sure.
Yeah, you'll hear it in the comments.
Yeah, they'll be
moron,
idiot, stick with fraud.
I know my drugs.
Yeah.
So he's like, take 7 Salma and eat a Snickers. This is the idiocracy that we partake in. Like, the fat from the Snickers will break up the Salma, and then you wash it down with a Red Bull, and it'll give you a real smooth buzz. I'm like, a buzz off 7 pills? Are you sure that's not like a little more than a buzz? Okay, but I'll do it. So I eat 4, and I was
because you're a professional.
Yeah, because I know what I'm doing. Clearly,
you're basing this in your vast knowledge of selling gym memberships and stealing out of a warehouse.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, he's damn near a doctor. So he's telling me what to do, and I remember I was still in the union at the time. I was in an end dump. Anybody that I'm still friends with who watches this is gonna be like, oh, I knew it. So I'm in an end dump working for Charlie Hess. It's this huge. You know what a Tonka truck is?
Yeah.
It's similar to that. We're hauling dirt from point A to point B, building cells for landfills. And so I'm like, man, I feel like shit. So I was like, I actually do have some Salma. I just never take them because I thought they were lame, So he said, no, take 7 of them. So I was like, well, let me start out with 4. So I popped 4, and I can't remember if I had the Snickers. Either way, not that it matters.
That would have changed everything.
Yeah, really. Yeah.
You know what the problem was? You didn't eat the Snickers,
that's
did you?
That's what it was. Told you. Yeah, idiots. I take the 4 Salma and I chew them because I'm a drug addict. And, you can't even, I don't even wash them down. I just chew them because they hit you quicker. And dude, I had like a seizure in my end dump. I was like leaning back, like it was bad. It lasted for like 10, 15 minutes. Thank God it was break time. Nobody noticed, and I wake up and I'm just like, everybody's standing next to my truck talking. I'm like, what the f just happened? So I call him up. I said, bro, 7? I just took 4 and almost died. He's like, then he tries to give me some bullshit excuse. He's like, oh, well, again, with
Did you have a peanut?
Yeah.
I mean, a peanut Snickers?
Seriously.
That's the problem.
I meant Milky Way.
Yes. I said Hershey's. What it was Snickers. Yeah. Of course you had a seizure.
Obviously.
I never said that.
Yeah. That was pretty much the gist of it. But so that's pretty accurate. But yeah, so long story short, he, being the doctor that he was, accidentally died doing that. He goes to take a bath. I call his phone one day and I'm like, where the fuck's this guy at, And I hit him up. His old lady answers the phone. I was like, where's Hawson at? She's like, Hawson died last night. I was like, what? She's like, yeah, he took a bunch of Salma and died in the tub. I'm like,
what about Snickers?
Did he eat the he told me not to. Did you find any candy wrappers in there?
There were 3 Snickers bar candy wrappers next to him. Yeah. We don't know what's happening.
It wasn't the Salma. He's probably had a nut allergy is what it was. So, yeah, so he died. He was the last of our little crew that died. And but it is what it is. But yeah, then my life started falling apart for some reason. So I go from...
It seemed like you were making all the right moves,
dude. I was setting up for the future and everything.
So I have a question with the tattoos. Were you getting tattoos the whole time?
So what's funny is this one right here, I was wasted when I got this and I fell asleep in the chair and the guy's like, what the f up with you, dude? Like, I've never had someone legitimately snore while I was giving them a tattoo. I was like, I just hit a blunt in the car. Meanwhile, I'm like 400 milligrams of methadone.
I got a tattoo?
Yeah. Where the f am I? No, so I learned real quick that A, I was a severe drug addict. B, I was an all-around piece of shit. And C, you can't sustain... I'll give you a prime example. I milked out my 401k one time, right? And I was like, I'm going to take this $8,000 and I'm going to go buy X amount of Oxycontin and I'm going to flip them and I could put the money right back, get a couple for myself. Nobody's the wiser. So roughly a week later, I have no Oxycontin, no money, and I'm sick as a dog. But it was shit like that all the time. So then I realized it was completely unsustainable.
Well, wait, I still have another question.
Yeah.
So were you getting tattoos at this time? Is that all the tattoos these are happening? And what is this one?
It says M for L. It's a joke between my son and I. Mick for life. We're Mckelveys. A Mick is like a derogatory term for an Irish person.
I know.
Okay.
I know what a Mick is. And you got it tattooed
Fucking
on your
right.
Okay.
Got to make those good decisions, bro.
I'm saying, is this a recent decision?
You gotta make yourself employable. I have no choice but to be an entrepreneur now, Matt.
I was gonna say, you're not getting a job at the bank. No, actually, you probably could now.
Yeah, nowadays,
You'll go to get money out of the bank, and like the chick's got like a neck tattoo, and you're like,
oh yeah,
fuck.
Oh yeah, tongue pierced.
Oh, listen, when I got out of prison, it was like 5 years ago. I mean, it's like people have blue hair.
Oh yeah,
like there's blue hair. They got you got 18-year-old girls with neck tattoos, and it's just like, what is happening? Like, this is insanity.
Dude, I see kids, like, I'm 43 and I have this, okay, whatever. But I also know how to make money now. I'll get to that.
Yeah.
Legally. Legally, but I know how to make money, so I'm at the point. I'm gonna have a little fun. I'm gonna make money. I'm gonna have a good time. I'm gonna enjoy myself. But dude, I see 21-year-old kids with their gang set across, or what's that chick? I don't know if you Krayshawn. I don't even know her name, but that rapper Blueface, his girlfriend, you know who I'm talking about? His girlfriend, she has a huge tattoo of his face on the side of her face. I'm like, what the are you doing?
Listen, Boziak dated a chick that got his initial tattooed on her face. I was like, what are you doing? What are you doing? And he's like, well, she wanted it. Like, well, you should have talked some sense into her.
Seriously.
And then they broke up.
2 weeks later, yeah.
Like 6 months later, they're talking on the phone, and he's like, oh, you seen anybody? She's like, no, believe it or not, it's kind of hard to date people when you got your ex-boyfriend's
what do you know?
initials tattooed on your face.
I have a solution. You go on Tinder, right, and you find someone with those initials.
Yeah, exactly. There you go.
I mean, it's a no-brainer. Or you could just not get a face tattoo. So yeah, I was at a point in life where I was just like, man, I'm a piece of shit. So I didn't want to do it, but I went to a methadone clinic, and this was gross. Like, I remember standing in line, and I know you were at a pretty low point when you went to prison. Trust me.
Yeah, it's not a good day. Like,
no, it's not a good day.
It's not like you're like, woo, finally gonna get some rest.
Yeah. Stand in line at a methadone clinic with people you went to high school with.
Oh my God.
That's rough. I remember looking behind me, and my barber was like 5 people back. He goes and walks back to his car. I was like, I already saw you, bro. We're here for the same thing. We're both pieces of shit. Yeah, it was a tough day. So I go in there, and of course I wasn't an addict. I was there because, whatever. And I get my counselor, and she's like, you're going to be here for the rest of your life, right? And I don't like that type of shit. I don't like control. I don't like being dependent on anything. So I was like, no, I'm just going to get myself better and get out of here. And she's like, well, that's not really how it works. Like, you're going to set your dose, and then if you still feel like you need to use, you're going to increase your dose, and then that's where it's going to stay. And it's similar to Suboxone, but it's a lot more, like, it gets in your bones. Like, it's so hard to quit. Like, you have to really, really want to quit. She says, well, what you don't realize is 2% of people can beat opiates, and you're not one of them. And I'm like, who the f*** you don't tell me if I'm one. I tell you if I'm one of them. You know what I mean? So I said, well, granted, for the first couple months I was there, they let you set your dose. So like an average dose would be like 70 milligrams. But, I'm cool as a cucumber, and I got to impress everybody. So I got to keep going up and up and up, because why do it if you're not going to do it big? So I'm like, well, I want to go more. I'm up to like 300 milligrams a day. And for anybody who knows methadone knows that's a high dose. And I'm also snorting Xanax and shit like that. So I haven't learned my lesson at all. And I'm driving like that. Riding my motorcycle. Actually wiped out of my motorcycle doing this shit. But so I'm setting my dose. I just keep going higher and higher. And then it starts to catch up with me. Like, I lose my job in the union. Family's falling apart. Lose my crib. Like, it's bad. It's typical junkie shit. And I'm like, I was just having fun like a year ago. Like, I went from looking down on people who used opiates to being in a methadone clinic and can't leave. Like if there's a nor'eastern and we get snowed in, I'm sick. Like I'll die. That's how addicted I am. So I remember I go down there and I said, look, I want to get off. She's like, oh, you can't get off. I said, no, I want to wean myself off. I want to get clean. How long will it take? She's like, at your dose, a year? I was like, no, I want to be done in like a month. Oh, I said, it can't happen. I said, all right, so what if I stop paying you? Because it's X amount of dollars a day. She's like, oh, well, then we'll detox you. And then all of a sudden, it's okay to do that. You know, like
Right.
if you stop paying us, we'll get you out of here real quick. By law, we can take you down X amount of milligrams a day until you're at 0. And I think they do it over like 30 days. So I said, well, that's what I'll do then. And she's like, oh, So they get me down to 0. The last day I go in there and I had like a bunch of take-home bottles, empty bottles. And I remember I had them in a ShopRite bag and I go to hand them to the other lady. And she's like, what's all this? I said, well, today's my last day. And she goes, what do you mean? I said, I'm not going to go here anymore. I'm clean. I'm getting clean. I'll never forget. She goes, okay. And she kind of like laughs at me. She goes, I'll see you, you'll be back.
Yeah, see you in 2 weeks.
Yeah. So I was like, bitch, I'll never see you again. You know what I mean? So I spent the next 30 days white knuckling it, smoking like an ounce of weed a day. Well, not an ounce of weed a day, but I was smoking like 4 or 5 blunts a day just to help me go to bed. Because I knew I never had a problem with smoking weed. I never had a problem with drinking. It really wasn't my thing. I would wake up, smoke a blunt, around lunchtime, start drinking. Granted, I was on unemployment, so I didn't have a job, so I could just do whatever the I wanted. That was another issue. Like, it's time to get your shit together. Right. Nighttime, I'd pop a couple Ambien. And I just did that for like 30 days. And then once I started feeling better, I stopped doing that as well because I didn't have a problem with that. I knew I could get rid of that. I never felt like an addict, but physically, if you take opiates for 5 days, you're physically addicted to it.
Right.
When you're done, you're done. Like me personally, like if I get to a point where I've had enough of something, dude, I don't care what it is. I'm done. Like I acted like an asshole. I'm done around.
Did you ever see the movie The Good Thief with Nick Nolte?
Probably.
It was a great movie, bro. He's in France, and it's a scam movie about a con. He's a professional con artist, but he's in France, and he's on. Yeah. And they're about to pull off this big scam, and he's like, okay, I got to get clean.
Right.
He handcuffs himself to the bed, and he has a conversation with this chick and a friend of his, and he's like, no matter what, like,
don't handcuff me. Yeah.
You feed me like I'm pissing and shitting in the bucket.
Right.
Do not, I'll beg you, plead with you, everything. Do not let me out. Right. And he stays in there for, I don't know what it is, 4 days, 5 days. I mean, he's sweating, he's screaming, he's trying to get away.
So gross.
Begging, promising them anything. And then, of course, 5 days later, it's been 5 days. They're like, can we unlock you? He's like, yeah, I'm good. Yeah. Unlocks it, but he knows, he's like, it's going to be agony.
Right.
It's going to be, I don't know if it's 5 days, 3 days, 7 days. I don't know what it was, but whatever. You just
about
see him. Yeah, it was it was like horrific. But he knew it. And he had to get these people to promise him.
Yeah, don't.
Yeah.
I'm a werewolf. Like, I don't care what I say.
Right.
You know what I mean? Methadone's a little different.
Hey, you guys, I hate to interrupt the video, but I wanted to let you guys know that we're posting an extra hour every single week on Patreon of exclusive content revolving around the different interviews that we do. It's only $10 a month for that exclusive content. So please check it out. Thank you. Back to the video.
Essentially, as an opium poppy, you can almost make the argument that it's all natural. Almost.
Right.
I mean, it's not something I would fuck with, but which is funny because like guys like me, we look down on users, but we were using opiate. Like we're using Oxycontin and everything else. And it's like, oh, you do scumbag? Like I do Oxycontin, but yeah, so you can kick in like a week if you're a tough guy, and then mentally it takes maybe 2-3 weeks to get your brain back because it drains your serotonin. Like, I mean, you are depressed like a because when you're on opiates of any sort, you're so happy, everything's good, no big deal. The second you get off that shit, you are just down. It took me like 3 months to come back to reality. I actually had to do mushroom. I did mushrooms to help me out because someone told me that it resets everything. So I ate a handful of mushrooms, and I got to tell you, the next day I was almost back to normal.
So were you like microdosing?
Maybe a little bit more than microdosing.
I met a guy at the gym who's got like PTSD.
Oh, dude, it works phenomenal for it.
And he microdoses.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
he was like, it's the only thing that
Oh,
helps
yeah.
me.
It's all natural, psilocybin. There's plenty of case studies. I mean, it's not bullshit. It's not hippie talk anymore.
Yeah.
Like they're finding out that it has a real place in modern medicine. I didn't know that. I was just fucking, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Someone told me, again, believing some idiot. We were going to Ozfest and I was at work and I was like, fuck, man, I'm hurting, dude. This guy's like, I got something for you, bro. He pulls out a Rubbermaid tote, probably like 5 pounds of mushrooms. Like, how much you want? Like, well, there's me and 4 other people. I guess I'll take a couple handfuls, you know?
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I the next day I was feeling a lot better. Then I kind of just never looked back. But so yeah, with the methadone, it just seems to get into your skeleton. I mean, it's just so hard to get out of you. It's tough. It really is. But I just, I wanted to get clean and, I wanted to change my life. I wanted to be, I knew who I was. I was taught toxicity. I was taught addiction. I was taught extremism. That's not your fault. But when you stay in it, that's your fault. If you're taught to be ABC.
You become an adult and you start realizing this isn't normal. Right. But I'm going to stick with it.
Right. That's when it's your problem.
Yeah.
That's when it's your fault. And that's where I was. So I was like, I'm just going to get clean and I'm going to change my life. And that's exactly what I did. It wasn't easy at all.
How old were you now? And how old were you at this
when
point?
I got clean off of methadone?
Yeah. In general. I'm assuming it's all after the methadone, that was it, right?
No, I still broke the law. I was still a piece of shit. I mean,
no, I'm saying I'm for drugs, as far as drugs is concerned.
Yeah.
Shaping up. Like I'm.
Yeah, I was 28 when I started getting it together.
Oh, okay.
I made the decision when I was 28, and then it was like a progress after that. I started getting into the personal development, reading a lot of Napoleon Hill, Wallace Wattles, just anything I can get my hands on. Really, just anything that I felt was like brain food, I would just devour it. I watched the movie The Secret, which is kind of silly, but I watched it like that. That was my introduction. Really, I remember going to.
We were mocking The Secret the other day.
Dude, it's so good.
He'd never heard of the. Colby had right. You hadn't heard of The Secret, right?
Is it like yellow and red?
Yeah. The book. The book
I
is.
I've seen like a TikTok about it. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty cringe. But there was a couple nuggets I got. Me and my buddy. It's funny you say about the tattoos because I was like getting the tattoos also to kind of like preoccupy myself, and which I still get tattoos, but. My buddy who I was getting tattoos with, he's like, you got to check out The Secret, Bobby. We call him Staten Island Chris. He's like this little mobster. Anything, remember iPod touches? Like anytime you'd go to his house, like his uncle just dropped off like a box full of them that fell off a truck.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He's like, Bobby, you want an iPod touch? I'm like, I'm all right. You sure? I got 5 of them. But he's like, Bobby, you got to check out The Secret. I'm like, what are you talking about, Chris? It's like magic. You got to watch it. And, but I watched it and it had a couple nuggets in there. One of the things that I held on to was, I hate to even say this, people are going to see this, but the gratuity rock.
Okay, no.
So
like I was in prison when this came out and I read maybe the first 2 chapters of the book and said,
the book's horrible.
I can't read this.
It's redundant. It is so elementary. So
I never saw the movie.
It's borderline idiocracy, honestly, and it's just it's repetitive. And it's like the movie was a little bit better because there's this guy in there. There's 2 guys that I kind of resonated with. They're both older guys, but Bob Proctor, who's passed away, and Jack Canfield. He wrote Chicken Noodle Soup for the Soul.
Oh yeah,
yeah. He's a pretty cool guy. But they're talking about a gratuity rock. And you find a rock or something that you like, and every time you touch it, you think of something you're thankful for. So I kind of took that with me, and it helped. It did help. And there's no magic. You have to do the work, but it's just a little something.
Yeah.
But I was getting into a lot of that shit. It helped greatly, but it's been a process. So when I made the decision, my reality didn't catch up. I was still doing shady shit. I was still associated with a lot of people that I shouldn't have been. A lot of drug dealers in my life still, a lot of criminal element in my life. I moved to South Carolina not long after that to just kind of get away from everybody and everything. And that was when that's when I really started to turn it around. I got a job down there that I kept for like 11 years, which is like the longest I ever kept a job.
What was the job?
I was working in a factory, but I was also doing construction on the side. I was doing my own shit where I was building like home bars and stuff like that, wine racks, home bars, flooring, any type of home remodeling. But I worked my factory job at the same time. You know what I mean? Like I was working for myself, doing my own thing. Then I got my license. I started building decks. I put 3-story addition on houses with one other guy, everything by herself by hand. You know, I just taught myself. Like I would go into a job, and I guess this is when the old shyster came out of me. Like someone would be like, "Hey, can you do ABC?" I'm like, "Of course I can. I've been doing that since you know what I mean." I'm in the driveway watching YouTube, like, "What the f am I supposed to do?"
What did I just sign up for?
Yeah, but she cut me a $12,000 check, so I couldn't say no. You know,
Right.
and it's either sink or swim. Getting back to when I was in the 8th grade, and I got stuck on the trip. I remember telling myself I have 2 options. It was so bad the first day it happened, the day that I was smoking weed and it all came back to me. I go home, I jump in a cold shower because I think that's going to make it go away. And I remember grabbing my head being like, ugh. And in my mind, I was pulling my head apart. And in between the 2 pieces of my head, I could see like these like iridescent colors stretching. So then I'm all tripped out and I'm trying to push my head back together in the shower because I'm thinking I'm pulling it apart. That's how bad it was. And I remember thinking to myself, like 2 months into it, I either have to find a gun and take care of the situation or will myself out of it. So I had no other choice because I wasn't going to go out like that. Like I'm not going to kill myself. So I had to will myself out of it. And it's almost impossible to overcome like a chemically induced situation because it's a chemical that's altering my mind. So I had no choice but to figure out a way to will myself out of it. And I did. So later on in life, when I finally got my shit together and I'm thinking like, you know, I can either fail or find a way.
Right.
Because I was not supposed to be able to do that. I was not supposed to be able to will myself out of that. And I did. So if I can do that, I can take care of this. You know what I mean? I can get through this.
Yeah.
And this is nothing. So that right there, like it was the most horrific thing I've ever been through. And, you know, I wouldn't change it for the world. You know what I mean? Like it was just, it molded me. You know, it just molded me and gave me like just a will to live, you know, a will to overcome. I mean, that's pretty much, I would say like the foundation of who, and plus the abuse and everything like that. Like it definitely gave me a foundation that I can stand on. You know,
Right.
like I wouldn't change it for the world. You know.
Well, what happened after the job? Why'd you stop working the job?
In the union?
Yeah.
Oh,
No,
it was-
I'm saying you said you did a job for 13 years in South Carolina.
Oh, because so I just I never wanted to be a 9-to-5 guy. Like I always pictured myself as an entrepreneur, and
But you're working 9 to 5.
yeah, I know.
Yeah.
So that's why I walked off the job one day
Right.
after 11 years. Like it was.
I mean, did you feel like had you built up the other business enough that you knew you were going to be
no,
okay?
No.
Because that's kind of what happens. Like people will work a 40-hour regular job,
Yeah.
you know, put something together, and when it gets to a point where they're like, I can get rid of this and just, you know, blow this my you know, whatever, my personal business,
Yeah.
dump that time into this, and I know I can double or triple or quadruple it.
Well, that would be called the seamless transition.
Yeah.
And that's not what I did. Why would I do that?
Right.
That's nonsense. No, I got into an argument with one of my uppers. Yeah. So I'd been there for a while, and I felt like I don't want to say I was everybody thinks this company could never go on without me. You know, everybody thinks that, and I'm not naive enough to think that. But I felt like I was somewhat of an integral part of the system, and I had been there for a long time, and I'm watching guys make mistakes that have been there for 8 years, and they just walk them out the front door. Like, f your family, f your bills, you're out of here. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, damn, like they could do that to me. And then I had made a couple mistakes, a couple situations. The week that I left, I ran some bad product. And the guy, not my immediate higher up, but the one who kind of oversaw the place, he was like making like some slick comments about firing me. Like it was a joke. And I'm like, you know what? Like if it's that funny, I'll go find, like, I'll make this work. Dude, I didn't have a job. I didn't have anything lined up. I'm like, I'm down to like $200 to my name. I had just paid all my bills. Like, you know, I had been mismanaging my money because I got all this money coming in, and I found myself in a position where whatever happened this month, I was down to like $200, and my back was completely against the wall. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, I need a sign. And all of a sudden the phone started ringing. Hey, can you come look at my, you know, I want to build an outside kitchen. And I get like 2 more phone calls. And I was like, that's a good enough sign. Yo, I'm not coming back Monday.
Right.
Just, I'm out of here. If it's that easy to fire me, go, you know, see ya. And I tripled my income the first year in a pandemic. Second year, I a little more than tripled it. Third, I think I'm on year 5 right now, which I'm transitioning out of construction all the way around. It's just not what I wanted to do with my life. I've been doing it since I was 13. I just have a lot more to offer. I'm very thankful that I can build a house. I'm very thankful that if God forbid everything goes sideways, I could build a deck for 10 grand. Very thankful that I know how to make a legal dollar. But it's not what I want to do. I mean,
Right.
I'm 43.
What are you transitioning into?
I'm going to take this full time. Like I remember the first time I got on the internet, right? But I was taught, my dad taught me, nobody can afford to buy a house. Nobody can go on vacation. Nobody's got that kind of money.
Right.
So my whole life, dude, I had I was making 100 and something grand a year thinking I couldn't buy a house. I could have bought 2 houses. You know what I mean? I had plenty of leverage. I had my credit was in the 700s. And in my head, I'm like, nobody can buy a house because that's what I was taught. So like, I always knew what I wanted to be and what I wanted to do. But I just thought that I couldn't because that's what I was taught. You drop out of high school, you go get a shit job, you wait to die. That's it. That's life, and that's a lie. You can do whatever the fuck you want. You could do whatever you want, whenever you want, wherever you want. Look at you. You know what I mean? You got out with nothing. And now, I mean, you're blowing up.
Well, Colby's been carrying me.
Colby's the real star of the show.
Yeah.
No, but like,
Yeah,
so
I was gonna say it's like, I mean, in my opinion, it's like setting a goal and just making small little incremental kind of movements towards that goal, and that to me. But
I see, and that's the thing. I don't care how long it takes. I don't care. I don't. It doesn't matter to me. I already know how to make money. I still have jobs coming in. I'm still making money. I'm working tomorrow. I was able to take today off. I'm going tomorrow. I got plenty of work. But in the meantime, I can remember 1995 when I was out in California. I go over to my buddy's house. I had one friend who had money. He was like the rich kid, and he lived up in Hillsborough, California. And his dad, you get a gallon of milk, you peel the top off. Yeah, his dad invented that. So yeah. Truckload of money. Right. Yeah. So he was like the first.
Ridiculous.
Dude, it's crazy. A little piece of plastic.
The little safety. Yeah. The safety thing.
Yeah. I'm like, well, you should see my dad shotgun a beer. So, so yeah, I go to his house and he's telling me about it, and he's just like showing me all around and shit. This castle up on top of the mountain. You can see San Francisco, and he's like, check this out. Naturally, we go on AOL, and he's like, you want to see some porn? And I'm like, what the is the internet? Like, what is this? And he's showing me what it is, and all of a sudden I'm talking to girls in Australia, which were probably 50-year-old men, but I'm talking to people on the other side of the planet. And I remember just being like, this is the gateway. Like, this is what I can do this. But I had that thought system, or that thought pattern of, no, you can't. You got to go do construction. So now I'm finally at a point in my life where I've learned how to do a seamless transition. I've learned how to, set up, have something on the back burner where I'm cooking on the front burner, and then slowly switch them. So, like I said, I told you that, the thing that I'm working on, and I'd like to have it up and running in the next 3 months. And if I could transition out of that by the first of the year, I'll be happy.
Well, what is it?
The podcast.
Okay. Well, you didn't mention that, by the way. This whole thing where you were talking, you said, the thing you never did, right? Am I right?
Well, I didn't want to be like a shameless plug on here. Like,
no, it's fine.
Yeah. I didn't want to be like, hey, come check me out.
Yeah. No.
Well, it's so right now, as I told you, there's nothing on my channels. I just secured the names. It's the Florida Man Podcast, and it's all things Florida. It's all things like, crime, paranormal, pothead shit. Yeah. Bigfoot, ghosts, crime.
Oh my God. You got to interview, I got a buddy named Chris. I've interviewed him 2 or 3 times.
Oh, I've seen it.
Hilarious.
Oh, dude, I love that guy.
I love him.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's anyway. But yeah, the Florida Man thing is great. And I was gonna say that everybody's always like, I go, man, aren't you worried about like running out of content?
No.
Serious?
Dude, just go on Florida News. Like, you'll see like the headlines that are on there. Like,
that was insane. Like and look, they're letting guys out of jail like thousands every day. Like, left and right. This is I'm not running out of content. I promise you.
Exactly. I have an idea. In the event that I hit a dry spell, I know several bail bondsmen. I'm gonna be like, hey, just come over and tell me. I saw your episode too, by the way.
The only worst thing about her, was it wasn't until she kind of got here that I realized she'd only been doing it for a few years, and she was already great.
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
What if I was thinking, what's she going to be like? The story she's going to have in 10 years.
Oh, bro.
Like I'll bet her son too, because he does it. He's going to be.
Yeah.
He's going like. And you're right. The bail bondsman people are the way to go.
It's an endless.
Tyler.
It's a treasure trove. I was a bondsman. I went and got my license for a little while. When Dog the Bounty Hunter came out, I was like, I could do that. So I go get my license, and I get a job in Toms River. Surprisingly enough, I had no criminal record. They approved me, and dude, the people that came through there. It's like, hey man, I got my buddy's across the street. I just got out. He's got a 15,000. Okay, I need $1,500. I got 500 and I got some Xanax. Or I got 500, I got my bracelet or my Rolex or whatever. You know what I mean? I'm just like, it's not my company. I can't just trade Xanax for
right.
But how much for the Xanax? No, but yeah, the shit you see, it's pretty wild. I mean, just the last kid that I bailed out, he had an aggravated assault. Granted, I don't consider myself like this seasoned bondsman. It was something I was trying to do in my 20s just because I thought it was cool. I think I did it for a year on the side. This kid I bailed out of jail, he was on like, nowadays if you go to county and you're addicted to drugs, they'll give you like methadone, Suboxone. Okay. But when I was doing it, bro, you sat in that tank and you poured sweat.
Right.
And you puked, and he was on all kinds of mood stabilizers. And this kid, he was half my size. And he gave me the creeps. Like he was on like some pretty serious antipsychotics, and they hadn't been giving them to him. And I was trying to do his paperwork, and this kid was just like, yeah, man, yeah. Like he wouldn't make eye contact with me. He wouldn't tell me his name. His mom had to come in and do the paperwork. This kid was pretty sketchy. I don't know. I don't even know whatever happened to him because I didn't stay in the business. But yeah, you meet some characters, that's for sure. Pretty dicey business to say the least. But that's what I'm going to do if I run out of content. I'm just going to, I got a couple guys that moved down here from Jersey that are full-time bondsmen, and I'm just going to hit them up and be like, hey man, come tell me some stories.
Right. How old's your son now?
I have a 24-year-old son.
Okay.
I have a daughter that just got married, another daughter who's an EMT, 14-year-old daughter, 9-year-old son, 2 grandkids.
Wow.
Yeah. Started young.
So where are you living right now? In
Port
Florida?
St. Lucie.
Port St. Lucie?
Yeah, for about a year now.
Okay, that's Port St. Lucie. That's down by Okeechobee, right? It's close to Okeechobee.
It's like
right?
45 minutes east of Okeechobee. We're we're like Jensen, Stewart, Vero Beach.
Yeah.
So we're like one town west of, I think, Jensen.
Okay.
Yeah. They're a pretty nice community, real family oriented. I'm a Miami guy. I love Miami, but like we have kids, so we didn't want to go.
Well, there's probably a good pool of people to interview from Miami.
Oh,
that's probably going to be a great.
That's my goal. Is
pull from Miami.
Oh yeah, dude, drug traffickers, anybody. So I don't want to show my hand too much, but you know who Barry Seal is, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so.
Is he still? Oh no, he's not still alive.
No,
Barry
Seal's dead, but someone that he worked with, I'm personally friends with his daughter, and I got to keep it close. He's super, super tight because he's still living in fear. Right. The guy that I'm talking about. His daughter said, I'll let you interview me from a daughter's perspective of what I saw my dad go through.
Right.
But he's probably not going to talk to you, and if he does, it's going to be real short.
Well, I got a bunch of smugglers.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we've done at least 2 in the last month, month and a half, 2 months. Like one was a pilot and one is.
Oh, yeah. Dude, that was good. That older guy, the bald guy?
Yeah, well, one was bald. Well, no, actually, they were both bald. One was bald and one was bald and had a beard. That was a pilot, right? The pilot was it?
Oh, yeah. Well, one did do the cars from here to Ohio with the gray beard.
Yeah.
Oh, and the other guy was the pilot.
The other guy was all bald pilot.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. He was pretty good.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that one.
Yeah, it's got
we used Barry Seal as a thumbnail. Or Tom Cruise.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
He had a bunch of good stories.
Yeah. Dude, I met her by chance at a bar too. We were at the Square Grouper. You know what a Square Grouper is?
Yeah.
Okay, so we were at the Square Grouper in Fort Pierce, and I went over there to look at a job, and I'm just shooting the shit, and this lady, she's just like talking, and then we start chit chatting, and she's like, starts telling me her story because she's got a couple drinks in her, and she says her dad's name, and I was like, wait, why? I said, that's a very familiar name. And she's like, she starts breaking it down. I was like, holy shit. I said, let me get your number. I said, would you be willing to talk to me? She's like, yeah, absolutely. So, you know, I mean, I'm gonna go for that. And like you said, there's no shortage of crime. There's no shortage of criminals.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember when a friend of mine was robbed for a pound of weed, and I hate to say we because I was just there, but I didn't partake in this one. This actually bothered me. Quote unquote, we were out for blood, just whoever was involved. And we're in front of my house playing spades one day. And a couple of the people pulled up that were allegedly involved with it. And they didn't know that people were saying they were involved. So they came up to play and smoke. And we're like, all right, let's go in the house and smoke. And I remember we going to the house and we're like, hey, you know, so-and-so said that you were involved with blah, 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 you know, with you know, what was taken. No, I wasn't. And just, I mean, the beating they threw this guy, it was that type of shit all the time. Like, I mean, this guy got off the ground and his face was rearranged. Like, he looked different. We saw him a couple years later, he looked different. I actually told him to stop. I was like, all right, enough, you're going to kill the guy. You know, and I don't even know if he had a part of it, you know what I mean?
Right.
So it was just, the 80s was a weird, well, this was in the 90s, but like, Jersey's a cold place, figuratively and, you know, and physically.
Right.
It's just a very dark, just... Everybody likes to be from Jersey, but everybody likes to leave Jersey. You know what I mean? Like, it's just a very, very unhappy place. People are miserable. Every time I go back up there, it's just the same energy, you know? So like my story is more of just being taught violence, being taught toxicity, being taught addiction and extremism, but you can unlearn all that. There's no like, this is you, this is your template. You decide that. Right. You build that. You know what I mean? I'm not going to go back to that. I'm not going to live like that. I'm not going to partake in that. I was taught that, but like we said before, you know, I choose to change that. You know what I mean?
I got a question.
Yeah.
'Cause probably a lot of people watch this probably have some type of similarity, whether it's the drugs or like the hard upbringing. Like, what's like tactical advice you give to them, or like what was it for you that like helped you change your mindset? Or
I have the perfect answer for that. I used to say my dad never taught me anything, but then one day I realized that he taught me everything because he taught me what I never wanted to be. You know, looking at this guy, you know, growing up with, you know, mismatched couches that they got out of the garbage, no cable, no phone, you know, no home decor, just a shell of a house, barely any heat, you know, beer cans everywhere. I don't want to be this. So figure out what you want to be and be that. Don't let it seep in. Don't let it change you. Stand firm. And the second you're able to get out of there, get out of there. Because the longer, I know guys that are trying to change, they decide to change in their 40s, but that root is deep. You know, you got to get out as quick as possible. The second you're old enough to get out of that environment, get out of that environment. Because the longer you stay, the deeper the root gets. And it gets so tough to cut out. I mean, I was like 28 when I made the decision to change, and it's still a struggle. I still have my default settings that I wrestle with, you know? It's not easy. It's not easy to, I mean, look, you've changed your life tremendously, but I'm sure there's always that default setting like, well, I could always go back to, you know what I mean?
Oh, look, yeah. it's a constant struggle.
Yeah. You know, I mean, it's, you know, yeah. It's, you know, a couple changes in the numbers here, and I can, I mean, you just have to, you gotta decide who you want to be, and you gotta fight. You gotta fight to keep it. I mean, in my opinion, your mind is essentially like the worst battleground you could ever be in. If you were raised like that. I mean, some people were raised in a good environment and they, I don't know, I guess had love or whatever. I guess, you know, I've heard of that. I mean, I don't know how difficult that can be, but, you know, for the most part, people are miserable. How many people do you know are doing what they love to do? How many people?
Not a lot.
A majority of people hate their life, so they take it out on their kids. Their kids are raised to be negative and miserable and do drugs and hate their life, and it just keeps going on and on and on. So, I mean, you have got to figure out what you want to be in life. I'll give you a prime example. I started a pest control company. I consider myself an entrepreneur. Started a pest control company. Hated it. Didn't last. Bought a tanning salon. You know, that was kind of fun because there's hot chicks walking in and out all day, but I had to be there 80 hours a week, and I was still working my factory job. Didn't last. started a construction company. I love the fact that I've done online marketing. Something else I can't think of right now, but I know I had something else going on. But the construction company, the remodeling, I love that I can do it, but I'm not happy at all. So the longer you stay in an environment where you're not happy, the longer you're going to be miserable. You got to figure out what it is you truly want to do. Someone said to me one time, "What can you do for free? If money wasn't an object,
what would you do for free?"
What would you do for free? Yeah. And it was always shit like this.
Yeah.
It was always shit like this. I love entertainment. I love networking. I love talking with people. I love meeting people.
That's the Gary Vee thing is, to try and turn your side hustle, the thing you like to do that makes you money, into your full-time gig. Right. So that's this. Like being in prison, all your bills are paid. You can, and there's stuff to do. You can watch movies. They got a movie room. You can go to horticulture class. You can read. You can be on different softball team. You can be on the flag football.
That's better than some people's life out here.
Right. But you add it all up. Like there's tons of stuff to do. But what I tended to do was walk the track and sit down and talk about what got you here. Talk about guys' stories. Right. Like, well, how were you doing this? What kind of crime were you doing? How did that evolve? You didn't just start doing that. Like, how did you, my brother and you'd walk the track and hear their whole story. To me, that was better than, I would rather do that with someone who had a good story than go watch Wolf of Wall Street.
Right.
I would rather walk around with that guy because it's an interactive version.
And it's therapeutic for them. You know, like you're getting to help somebody. Like people, I don't like talking until you get them talking and then they won't shut the up. They want to tell you their whole life story. It's therapeutic for them. It's good for you. I mean, I feel you on that.
But the goal is to shoot the shit with somebody and figure out how to make that. So out here, how do I make that pay?
Right.
How do I make that pay? How do I make that become, that your side hustle or the thing that you like to do? How do you make that end up making you money? Yeah. And then that would be YouTube. Right. Like I didn't know that when I got out. I didn't know that's how it was going to work. Yeah. But it was like you set that goal, start moving towards it, and this is what developed out of it. I couldn't have told you this was what was going to develop. I thought I was going to be try and get something hooked up with like a big production company that would help me make documentaries or help me maybe do a podcast, but a heavily edited podcast with interviews. But that just never materialized. What am I trying to say?
Materialized. So let me ask you this. Now that you've taken it this route, essentially independent, are you glad you took this route or would you have rather taken the more commercial route?
No, I like this. The worst part of this job, like this is the best part to me. Yeah. The worst part is scheduling. Yeah. Talking to people, scheduling with people. You talk to some people, some people you have to hold their hand the whole way through. Some people.
And then what? And then what? And then what?
Hey, what about this? Well, what about that? Well, what about? Well, no, I don't mean talking. I mean talking about getting them on the phone, and it becomes, you have to do like everything to get them there, and then you have to they're constantly contacting you the whole time. And then you've got the guys that are those people that are self-motivated that tend to own their own businesses. They're the ones that are like, okay, cool, I'll be there at 10 o'clock on the 25th. And like literally you don't hear from them for like 3 weeks. And then a couple days beforehand, I'm like, I hope this guy's going to show up. And I'm like, hey bro, what's going on? It's like, yeah, man, I'm getting on the plane tomorrow. I got it. Okay. And then it's like, hey, looking forward to, bro, I'll be there. It's like they know. I understand what you're thinking. I won't be there because you haven't heard from me. I'm going to be there.
Yeah, I was here. I actually shot over here. I think I was here. I shot over here like 2 hours ago because I kind of had a general idea where you live. So I just we're hanging out. I don't really know the area that well, but I went over by Planet Fitness and was just shooting the shit for a little bit. But yeah, man, I didn't know because you do more like pretty what's the word I'm looking for? Like sexy crimes, like pilots who are smuggling drugs and shit. And I'm like this hooligan, who's just been like doing.
But what channels blow up? The guys that blow up are the guys that do the prison content. I just can't do it because I didn't have that experience in prison. I wasn't in a pen. I've seen it. Like I've been right next to a guy when he got hit by a lock. I mean, literally it was the belt and the lock went right by my head within inches and hit the guy. The guy that was standing in front of me was like, his head is right here.
That noise is so gross, isn't it?
And then he hit him. The guy fell down, tried to stand up. He hit him again and again and again. And then the guy took off running. So, and then he's laying there, and then he tried to walk out the gate with the guard sitting there. The gate, as he's walking by, the guard's like, "Whoa, wait a minute!"
Yeah.
Closes the gate, hits the deuces.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I've seen guys get stabbed. I've seen that, but I was never a part of it.
Right.
I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I was a shot caller. I'm not going to talk about how I was in a knife fight. I'm not going to talk about how I had a problem with a guy. I said, meet me on the yard.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do that. And honestly, it's like I don't want to deal with that. Like I have no interest in violence. I have no interest in. I'm interested in unique crimes. Like you got a unique crime, something that's a little different.
Right.
Then it's like that's interesting to me.
Yeah.
How did you figure out how to rob the bank? You know, like how did that materialize,
Right.
and what steps did you take towards it? Or did somebody come to you and say, "Hey, look, my girlfriend works at the bank. It's been robbed 4 times. Here's how they're getting away." She said, "You guys come in, they give them the money." Wow, like that starts to become like, okay, well, how did that? So this is what happened. Yeah, and then we hit this one, and we hit this one, and we hit. I'm interested in that. That's unique, or a Ponzi scheme, or things like that are the doctor shopping ones are semi interesting to me, mostly because it was you had to figure out. Well, it depends. You had to figure out how to get the pills, how to get that, and then when they start hitting multiple ones, it's like, how do you take this? What most people. Maybe they're selling a few pills and you kind of McDonald's it. You turn it into like an industry. Next thing you know, somebody else is making, $1,000 selling their pills, and somebody else turns around and says, how can I start selling 100,000 of these?
Right.
And they quit their job and they go full force. And you're like, oh my God, you're all in.
You with Johnny Mitchell, right?
I've had him on the podcast. On his. So
he just had one of the brother that got released from
Chris George. He was actually supposed to be here Friday.
No shit.
Last Friday. And he canceled. We're supposed to reschedule. And Derek Nolan, the guy that ran the American Pain for him, is also supposed to come.
Dude, that guy has no remorse. Like I watched him on Johnny Mitchell. He's like, well, they needed it, so I gave it to him. I'm like, what the It's like it's medicine.
Did he get into the fact that they all got tattoos on their. They all got tattoos. So while the investigation's going on, they're all making these promises that we're going to trial. Nobody's going to flip. Yeah. And they all got tattoos of a rat with a noose around it, hanging from it.
I did hear that, but I don't think I saw it on Johnny Mitchell's thing. I think it was on the, was that on the documentary?
I don't know. I didn't watch the documentary. I wrote a book. I wrote a Derek Nolan story. I wrote a story called Pain. Yeah. And he has one on his calf. And the other one, guys, maybe they got it on their, I don't know where they got it, but they all got one. It's like, and of course they all ended up cooperating.
Oh, of course, come on. Yeah. No snitching here.
No, you'd be a fool not to. They're all going to get life sentences. I mean, cooperating, they're still all getting 10 and 15 years.
Right.
You go to trial, you're never getting out.
Everybody's tough until you're looking at a double-digit sentence. It's like, shit.
How close were we?
Yeah. I don't.
He was a work friend.
Yeah. I mean, I barely knew the guy. Yeah. Oh, I feel you, man. Listen, but no, the reason I asked that about like what route you would rather take is because, like I've had, like a goal or a destination in mind, and it's like, especially several instances in my business now where I'm like, this is my break. This is how I'm getting it. This is going to be the one. And it crumbles before my eyes. And then I take another route that I never expected, and it's just money on top of money on top of money, 10 grand here, 12 grand there, you know what I mean? And it's just like, well, damn, I didn't expect that, but I would never take the route that I wanted to go. Yeah. Like if I knew A and B, I was hell bent on A, and it just crumbled like sand. Like your situation, you're like, I planned on being like with this production company, this and that, but instead I'm doing it by myself. I've
had that. By the way, I've had that deal fall apart multiple times where it's like, this is exactly what I want. This is exactly laid out. This is how much money it's going to be. This is going to be amazing. Right. COVID hits. Same thing. Right. I had this whole thing set up. We've actually done we did all the work. I've been interviewed. We told the story. I actually did it twice, and then suddenly I said the wrong thing, and they were a bunch of liberals from
I saw you talking
California.
About that the other day. Oh yeah.
Whole thing. Matt, we can't work with you.
Yeah, right.
Why? Because I said I believe in some of the stuff that Andrew Tate says.
Right. Which, listen to what he's saying. It's obviously comical. He's adding the comedy edge to it so you can digest it. Like, remember Mary Poppins, a spoonful of sugar makes the medicine go down? Right. He's making it funny so he gets your attention. Right. But what he's saying is true.
Yeah. It's shock value. He's saying like, it's the delivery sucks. But at shock value, he's
Yeah.
trying to get eyeballs. He did get eyeballs. If you look at his stuff now, he's toned it back
big
so
time.
much
Big time.
that it's palatable to everybody turned off now. It's palatable, but it's probably too late for most of them.
Right.
But for you to sit here and say, "Oh, you believe what he says?" Well, wait a minute. He says, "Get up early,
Yeah.
work out,
Right.
be a man, get a job,
Yeah.
provide for your family."
That sounds pretty racist, man.
I know. I mean, my God, you misogynistic pig. It's
Yeah.
what, but he did say this one thing, like a man should be able to have as many wives as he wants. Like, I disagree with that. To me.
Well, he's a Muslim, isn't he?
Right, but I have Christian values.
Yeah, right.
So that's different. We differ there, but I'm okay with differing there because I believe these things.
Yeah, I'm almost certain you could have a concubine in the Old Testament, though.
I mean, I'm going to look into it.
Yeah, I'm gonna, obviously, I'm gonna be an Old Testament guy from now on.
Yeah. I don't think I would
Edit
be
that out,
that.
please.
I don't think I would be an Old Testament guy for long. Once my wife found out, I
Yeah.
think she'd pretty much.
You'd become one of the eunuchs where they chop your cock off.
Yeah, and then she'd slip my body into the Everglades and let the alligators eat me.
Oh yeah, that's funny. Actually, so if I'm not mistaken, you had her as a guest, right?
Jess,
Yeah.
I did have her as
Back
guest.
in the day, and she was the one talking about her aunt.
Yeah, and I had to. I recently took it down.
Oh, okay.
She was furious because she promises. She's not going to do it, but she promises she's going to redo the whole thing.
Okay.
Again, she actually was on Ian Bick. She did on Ian Bick. It did pretty well.
I could have swore I saw her. I thought it was yours, but she was talking about owning her and her boyfriend were like owning like a tour guide or something like that.
Yeah. Her and her ex-husband, they ran it. She was a hog hunting tour guide.
That was your show, right?
Yeah, about
Okay.
6 years.
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
or it may have been Ian Bick. She may have
No,
been,
it wasn't Ian Bick. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would have remembered if it was him because I just started watching him a couple months ago. He's pretty good too. But yeah, it was definitely yours. But yeah, that was a pretty good episode too, man. There was, when I hear stories like that, the similarities, it's like, granted, I was being fed blackberry brandy, and let me tell you something else. If you're fishing on a hot day and you're thirsty, and your dad tosses you a beer, you're more thirsty after the beer.
Right.
There's nothing thirst quenching about a bud, when you're 7 years old. But like I remember, being fed blackberry brandy, Budweiser, weed, cigarettes. And I thought that was bad. But then when I hear like a story where this, because I have a teenage daughter, where this lady's feeding this teenage girl, crystal meth, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, are you out of your mind?
Oh, listen, the whole. I don't want to say the whole family because my wife's father, I just love him to death. I think he's great.
Yeah.
Other than that, I haven't met one redemptive quality in any of her relatives that aren't currently, and they're all currently
crazy.
on something. They're in and out of jail.
Yeah.
Her sister has changed her entire life. So her sister's great. But her sister's also in the problem is you get yourself into a tough position. You make all those mistakes when you're younger,
Right.
and now you're in a bad spot, and you
yeah.
clean yourself up. But you're dealing with,
dude.
you're now living the right, an honorable life, but you're still in a position that you created when you were dealing with addiction, and it's
Right.
horrific, and it's like so now you're just struggling to survive, and it's like I see these people, and I some of them I feel bad for, and some of them is just like,
Well, it's actually called seed time and harvest. And I notice, not to get spiritual on you, but I firmly believe that the universe was designed on cycles. There's a cycle of planting, and then there's a cycle of harvest. And like when I was in my addiction and my criminal years, I planted a lot of seeds, a lot of negative seeds that after I got straight, the harvest came.
right.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, well, shit, I ain't been around in years, but all of a sudden I got someone knocking on the door with a file, you know what I mean? And it's like, that was years ago. And it's like, I don't really want to talk about that one, but it was an IRS situation. That I actually just wrapped up, and I would rather not piss them off anymore. So, but it's like, you plant these seeds, and whether it be good or bad, that shit's gonna sprout. So yeah, when you were in your addiction, you all this shit up. You got your license suspended. You got warrants. You lost your kids, which thank God none of that ever happened. Well, I had my license suspended dozens of times, but thank God, I kept my family together. But then you're clean. And it's like, well, now I owe the Department of Motor Vehicle $10,000, and I have a warrant in this state, and I moved to this state, and I have to go back to New Jersey.
And really, you want to just call them and say, no, I was going through a bad time.
Yeah.
I'm all better now.
I'm a good person.
Yeah. You should let all that go because I'm on the right path now.
Yeah.
And they're
Oddly enough,
unsympathetic.
they don't,
Yeah.
That's when you just gotta tell them how racist they are, and
Is this because I'm white?
yeah, call them homophobic. They're like, oh, sir, excuse me.
Did you misgender me?
Yeah, it's ma'am. Now I'm gonna need you to go ahead and take that warrant off. No, but yeah, I mean, seed time and harvest. You plant the seed, you get the harvest, and unfortunately, like especially with women, when they get themselves in a certain position where they lose their kids, and that's got to be tough, man. I know quite a few women who've went down a pretty rough road with like prostitution to support their habit, never getting their kids back, end up with STDs, warrants that they still haven't straightened out. Now they're on Suboxone, and everybody knows what they've been a part of. So and I'm talking about beautiful women who went down the road, and you look at them now where they're reaping their harvest, and you look at them 10 years ago, and it was like, we were just having fun. Now I wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole, you know what I mean? Like it's just, and there's no redeeming, it's tough, man. It really is. That's why, when you said before about like any type of advice, like get out as quick as you can. Like if you're f***ed up, realize what you're f***ed up. I always use this analogy, right? If you have a car that's rusty and you paint over it, it looks good, right? But in 6 months, the rust comes back through. You got to get down to the rust. You got to sand it off. You got to get down to the metal, then prime, then paint, and then you're good. Clear coat, you're good. But if you paint over problems, and you try to just,
You just resurface.
I have these addiction issues, but I'm going to quit getting high. Not for long. Or you're going to have, some other issue. Or you're going to have overwhelming anxiety or this or that or whatever the case may be. You got to get back and face it. So that's like with me, with I laugh it off. Like the shit that I went through, like my mom kicking me out of the car in the middle of the ghetto when I was 6 years old, taking off, it's not funny, but it's kind of funny. Like I'm a 6-year-old kid knocking on someone's door at 3 a.m. Granted, I would never, it's not funny, but like I'm okay. I'm here. I'm alive. It's funny.
I always say, what choice do I have?
Right.
But you want me to cry, break down and cry
Right.
every time I tell a story? Like
Right.
not that I don't cry at half my stories, but I do, but most of it I just have to kind of laugh off.
Yeah. What are you going to do?
Right.
Sit around moping, next thing you know, you're on antidepressants, and then then you find out, oh, that's what I love. People take these antidepressants, right? 6 months later, if you've ever taken this antidepressant, consult your physician.
All right.
You mean the same physician that gave me the antidepressant?
Yeah,
no, thank you.
Class action lawsuit.
Yeah, that's the same guy that poisoned me. I'm good. I'll just deal with it. So I didn't know if you were going to use mine because like it wasn't salacious. You know what I mean? Like I'm just mine's like more of like a everyday story of redemption. So I didn't know if like or just growth and prosperity. So I didn't know if it was like sexy enough. You know what I mean? But I was like, shit, I'll give it a try. You know what I mean? Like I'm just like an everyday guy. I feel like for the most part, I'm like what an average American goes through. I mean, maybe not the Joe Dirt routine.
I disagree, but okay.
But I mean more of like, just raised in toxicity and poverty and shit like that, and it's so easy to get caught into addiction. I mean, I'm not like an addiction specialist. I don't want to be an addiction. I've helped people get clean, but I don't want to be like, I just want to have fun. Like, I just want to like, just do what I want to do, have fun. Like I said, I was actually pretty up when I did this, but one night I was this was in South Carolina. This is actually pretty funny. I was in South Carolina, and I had a big piece of property, and we're having like this big ass bonfire, and I'm like, I don't drink often, but like when I do, I like to tie it in. You know what I mean? Like I definitely tie one on. So we're out there drinking bourbon and shit, having a good time. It's like 2 a.m, and my kids are out there, and they're older. Like at the time, I think my son was 21. He was just home from the Air Force. My daughter was like 19, whatever. So they're like, did you guys hear about the Bull Street Asylum? And my ears perk up. I'm like, what is that? And they're like, it's an insane asylum in Columbia, South Carolina, which I always got a kick out of the fact that you ran scams in Columbia. But because that's essentially where I lived.
Right
outside of Columbia. So they're like, it's an insane asylum abandoned in South Carolina, and you got to break into it. But it's not just an asylum. It's almost like a village. Like the workers lived there. They had their houses. They had a church. They had the main facility.
Right.
Morgue, the whole deal. And I'm like, well, what's that about? And they're like, well, you got to break into it. So I got, I used to breed bullies, like pit bulls. So I was like, let's grab Rocco. I'm hammered. I'm like, this is a great idea. I'm down. And I'm expecting my wife to be like, shut the up. You're not going anywhere.
Right.
My wife's like, yeah, I'm going to go to bed. You guys go have fun. I'm like, yo, talk me out of this. You know what I mean? Like, fucking talk some sense into me. Tell these kids I'm not allowed to go. So she goes in the house. I'm like, all right, I grab the dog. One of the kids are driving. We load up, like 5, their friends, the kids, me. I got the dog. We break into this place at like 2 a.m. There's cops. We're like, this is how responsible I am. Like, I'm with my kids doing a B&E, but it's fun. It's, we're being silly.
Everybody does this. Everybody's doing it.
Right. Just don't get caught. Like, so we break in and we're like going to the top floor. I'm looking for the morgue. I actually have a picture. I sent it to you where they used to do like ice baths. Like, I'm in the tub. I got a bandana on my face. Of course, I have like a Bible, a bag of salt in case like any ghosts come. I can hit them with the salt. You know what I mean? Like, we're just being stupid. You know what I mean? But I get in this ice bath and I lay back and they take a picture. It's eerie. But my kids are like, I keep hearing somebody following us. I'm like, yeah, it's a demon. We found all this satanic shit where people were doing seances. So I'm joking around and the dog's growling. Like, the whole scene is set. So we come outside and we're about to go break into the church, and here comes Lexington or Richland County sheriff come flying up. And when he comes flying up, it's like 3 a.m. He turns his lights on, and sure as shit, 2 just black silhouettes stand up out of the bushes and start running. So I don't know who the f*** it was, but it was like these 2 people were following us the whole time through the whole building. And I'm like, I'm all tuned in, so I don't know. The dog's growling. I'm ignoring everything. And someone burnt the place down a few months later, but it got so hot. There's a steel bell house, a massive steel bell house. They like liquefied and poured into the building. They rebuilt it all now. It's why anyone would rent an apartment that used to be an insane asylum is beyond me, but it used to be an insane asylum. They turned it into condos.
Cool. I think it'd be kind of cool, right?
Yeah, if you like getting possessed. I mean, but that's the type of shit I want that I'm going to be focusing on. Like, Florida man, weird shit, paranormal, just more like Danny Jones type silly shit. You know what I mean? I think it'll be fun.
Yeah.
So, but
we good? Yeah. All right, I'm wrapping it up.
Yeah, man.
All right.
Yo, thanks for having me, brother.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. No, you're not going anywhere. Come here. Okay. Hold on a second. All right. Ready? Well, wait. Okay. So, all right. Hey, you guys, we're going to go ahead and we are going to put, what's the name of the links? The channel?
The Florida Man Podcast.
Florida Man Podcast. We're going to put the link in the description. Please check it out. Also, hit the subscribe button. Hit the bell so you get notified of videos like this. Also, please join my Patreon. We're going to be putting exclusive content about this this interview on Patreon. It's $10 a month. Please check it out. Thank you very much. See ya.